Before we begin our journey together tonight, I would love to invite you to become a part of our quiet, global community. Please take a moment to leave a comment, letting us know where in the world you are and what time it is for you. There is a gentle and profound comfort in knowing that as you settle down to rest, others from all corners of the earth are joining you in this shared sanctuary, seeking peace together. Whether you are watching from a bustling city where the lights never dim, or from a quiet countryside where the stars shine bright and clear, whether it is the deep of night or the gentle hours of dawn, your presence here is a gift to all of us who gather in this sacred space of rest and renewal. And if this journey brings you a sense of peace, if it offers you a moment of respite from the storms and struggles of your day, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us to continue creating these gentle paths to inner stillness for all who may need a quiet harbor in the storms of life. Each subscription is not just a number to us, but a soul seeking peace, a heart yearning for rest, a spirit in need of gentle guidance back to its own true home. Now, as we prepare to embark on this sacred journey together, find a position that feels deeply comfortable and nurturing for your body. This might be lying down in your bed, with your head cradled by soft pillows and your body supported by the gentle embrace of your mattress. Or perhaps you are seated in a favorite chair, one that has held you through many quiet moments of reflection. Wherever you are, whatever position feels most natural and restful, allow yourself to settle into it completely. Allow your limbs to grow heavy, as if they are made of warm, liquid gold, flowing and settling into the most natural and comfortable position. Feel your muscles beginning to soften and release their hold, like ice melting in the warmth of spring sunshine. Let go of the tension you may be carrying in your shoulders, that weight of responsibility and worry that so many of us bear. Feel it dissolving, flowing away from you, like water running off the petals of a flower after a gentle rain. Feel the gentle, unwavering support of the surface beneath you, holding you, cradling you with the same tender care that the earth holds a sleeping seed through the long, dark winter. Give yourself permission to let go of all the tension you have been carrying from the day, all the small and large burdens that have accumulated like dust on the windowsill of your consciousness. Let your eyes close as softly as petals folding at twilight, as gently as a child's hand relaxing in sleep. Take a slow, deep breath in, imagining the air as a wave of liquid peace, washing into every cell of your being, carrying with it the essence of tranquility, the very breath of serenity itself. Feel this peaceful air flowing into your lungs, expanding your chest, filling you with a sense of spaciousness and calm. And as you exhale, let it be a long, slow, complete sigh, releasing everything that is not needed for this journey into rest. Let the thoughts, the plans, the worries of the day drift away like small, paper boats on a vast, calm ocean, disappearing over the gentle curve of the horizon, carried away by currents of peace to places where they can no longer disturb your rest. Breathe in again, a long, slow, nourishing breath, drawing in not just air, but peace itself, tranquility itself, the very essence of rest and renewal. Feel the peace of this present moment begin to settle in your heart, like a soft blanket of mist settling over a quiet lake at dawn, muffling the harsh sounds of the world and leaving only a profound and beautiful silence. This silence is not empty, but full of potential, full of peace, full of the gentle presence of your own being, resting in its natural state of calm awareness. Breathe out, and with your breath, consciously let go of any tension you might be holding in your jaw, that place where we so often clench our worries and our unspoken words. Let your jaw soften, your tongue rest gently in your mouth. Release any tension in your shoulders, those faithful bearers of our burdens. and let them drop and settle into a position of complete relaxation. Feel any tightness in your hands melting away, your fingers uncurling like flowers opening to the morning Sunday. Let go of any tension in your back, that strong pillar that supports you through all of life's challenges, and allow it to sink into the support beneath you with complete trust and surrender. Feel your body sinking deeper and deeper into a state of profound and welcome relaxation, like a stone settling gently to the bottom of a clear, still pond. With each breath, you become more still, more present, more open to the gift of deep, restorative rest. Your breathing becomes slower, deeper, more rhythmic, like the gentle waves of a calm sea lapping against a peaceful shore. As you continue to breathe in this slow, rhythmic way, allow the screen of your imagination to gently illuminate, like the first soft light of dawn touching the horizon. The sounds of your present surroundings begin to fade, becoming distant and unimportant, like voices heard from far away across a wide meadow. In their place, a new and ancient soundscape emerges, one that speaks to something deep and timeless within your soul. You can hear the gentle, whispering sound of water, a soft, rhythmic lapping against a silent shore, the eternal conversation between water and earth that has been going on since the beginning of time. You can feel a cool, clean mist on your skin, carrying the scent of damp earth, rich and loamy, and full of life, of ancient stones, worn smooth by countless years of wind and rain, and of the first, delicate blossoms of spring, their fragrance sweet and hopeful and new. The air itself seems different here, cleaner somehow, purer, as if it has been filtered through layers of peace and tranquility. It carries with it the essence of growing things, of moss and ferns and wildflowers, of tall trees with deep roots and wide branches, of streams that run clear and cold over smooth stones. This is the air of a place untouched by the hurry and worry of the modern world, a place where time moves differently, more slowly, more gently, in harmony with the natural rhythms of the earth and sky. You find yourself standing on a path that is both ancient and new, a path that seems to be waiting just for you, as if it has been here for countless ages, patiently holding space for this very moment when you would arrive and begin your journey. The path is made of smooth grey stones, each one worn down by time and the footsteps of countless unseen travellers who have walked this way before you, pilgrims and seekers and wanderers, all drawn by the same deep longing for peace, for understanding, for a return to the quiet centre of their own being. The stones beneath your feet are warm to the touch, as if they have been absorbing sunlight all day and are now gently releasing that warmth back into the world. They fit together perfectly, creating a surface that is both stable and beautiful, a testament to the patient work of hands that understood the value of creating something that would last, something that would serve travellers for generations to come. The path winds its way through a landscape of profound and gentle beauty, a landscape that seems to have been painted by an artist who understood the deepest longings of the human heart. On either side of the path, there are moss-covered rocks, their surfaces soft and velvety, glowing with a gentle green light in the filtered sunshine. Ancient trees stand like wise guardians, their gnarled branches reaching toward the sky in gestures of prayer and praise, their roots running deep into the earth, connecting them to sources of strength and nourishment that lie far below the surface. Between the trees, you can see the soft, green shoots of new life pushing up through the dark, rich earth, tender and vulnerable and full of hope. Wildflowers dot the landscape like scattered jewels, their colours soft and muted, as if they have been touched by the same gentle peace that permeates this entire place. The air is filled with the sound of birds singing, their voices clear and sweet, weaving together in harmonies that speak of joy and contentment, and the simple pleasure of being alive. And there, just ahead of you on the path, you see a figure. It is a figure of quiet grace and gentle strength, moving with the unhurried pace of one who has learned to walk in harmony with the rhythms of the natural world. It is the water bearer, and as you watch them approach, you feel a sense of recognition, as if you have been waiting for this meeting for a very long time, perhaps your entire life. The water bearer is neither old nor young, neither male nor female, but seems to embody something beyond the usual categories of human existence. Their face is calm and serene, marked by the kind of deep peace that comes only from years of patient practice, of learning to find stillness in the midst of life's storms. Their eyes are deep and full of a quiet, compassionate wisdom, eyes that have seen much sorrow and much joy, and have learned to hold both with equal tenderness and understanding. They are dressed in simple, flowing robes of a soft, indeterminate color, like the sky at dawn when the night is fading, but the full light of day has not yet arrived. The fabric moves gently in the soft breeze, creating patterns of light and shadow that seem to shift and change with each step they take. There is something timeless about their appearance, as if they could have stepped out of any century, any culture, any tradition that has ever sought to understand the deeper mysteries of existence. In their hands, they carry a simple wooden yoke across their shoulders, a tool that speaks of patient labor, of the willingness to bear burdens, of service to something greater than oneself. The wood is smooth and polished, worn to a beautiful patina by years of faithful use. It is the kind of tool that is made to last, crafted with care and attention by hands that understood the importance of creating something that would serve well and truly. And from each end of the yoke, a bucket is suspended by strong woven ropes that have been carefully knotted and secured. The buckets are also made of wood, simple and unadorned, but beautiful in their simplicity, their clean lines and honest construction, speaking of a time when things were made to be both functional and pleasing to the eye. One bucket, you notice, is perfect. The wood is smooth and seamless, fitted together with the skill of a master craftsman, and it is filled to the brim with clear, sparkling water that catches the soft light and shimmers with a quiet joy. The water seems to glow from within, as if it contains not just the physical substance of H2O, but something more, the essence of purity, of clarity, of life itself. When the light hits it just right, you can see tiny rainbows dancing on its surface, miniature prisms of color that speak of beauty and wonder and the infinite creativity of the natural world. The other bucket, however, is not perfect. It has a crack in it, a long, jagged line that runs from the rim nearly to the bottom, a flaw that would make it useless for most practical purposes. And as the water-bearer walks, water leaks from the crack, leaving a trail of dark, wet drops on the stone path behind them, a steady drip, drip, drip that marks their passage like a liquid signature written on the earth. At first glance, this might seem like a problem, a flaw that needs to be fixed, a source of waste and inefficiency. But as you watch the water-bearer's face, you see no frustration, no concern, no desire to replace the broken bucket with a perfect one. Instead, there is a look of gentle acceptance, even affection, as if this cracked bucket is not a burden, but a beloved companion, not a source of loss, but a teacher of profound wisdom. The water-bearer turns to you, and their eyes meet yours. There is no judgment in their gaze, no evaluation or assessment, only a gentle, unconditional welcome that seems to see straight through to the deepest part of your being and find it beautiful, worthy, exactly as it is. They offer you a small, serene smile, an expression of such warmth and kindness that you feel something tight and guarded in your chest begin to soften and open. With a simple, graceful gesture, they invite you to walk with them, and you feel a sense of deep and profound peace in their presence, a sense that you are safe, that you are seen, that you are welcome here, just as you are, with all your imperfections and struggles, all your hopes and fears, all the broken and beautiful pieces that make up the complex mosaic of your human existence. Welcome, traveler, the water bearer says, their voice as soft and as clear as the water in the perfect bucket, with a quality that seems to resonate not just in your ears, but in your very bones, in the deepest chambers of your heart. I am glad you have found your way to this path. So many wander for so long, searching for something they cannot name, longing for a peace they cannot quite remember, carrying burdens they do not know how to set down. But you are here now, and that is what matters. The path has been waiting for you, and you have answered its call. They pause for a moment, their gaze turning to the horizon, where the path disappears into the gentle folds of the landscape. I am about to embark on a series of 7 journeys. They continue, their voice taking on the quality of one who is sharing a sacred secret, each one a pilgrimage to a different landscape of the heart. Each journey holds its own lessons, its own challenges, and its own unique and precious gifts. They are journeys that every soul must take, sooner or later, for they are the journeys that lead us home to ourselves, to the truth of who we really are beneath all the roles we play and masks we wear. The water bearer's eyes return to yours, and you see in them depths of compassion that seem to stretch back through countless ages, as if they have walked with many travelers before you, guiding them through the same landscapes you are about to explore. I would be honored if you would walk with me, they say simply. The path is easier when shared, the burdens lighter when carried together, the joys deeper when witnessed by a friend. You nod, your heart filled with a sense of quiet and profound rightness, as if every step of your life has been leading to this moment, this meeting, this invitation to journey into the deepest territories of your own soul. You know, in a way that is deeper than words, deeper than thought, that this is the journey you are meant to be on, the path you have been seeking without even knowing you were searching for it. You begin to walk, your steps falling into a quiet rhythm with the water bearers, a rhythm that seems to match the beating of your heart, the flow of your breath, the gentle pulse of life itself, moving through your veins. The only sounds are the soft crunch of your feet on the path, a sound like whispered prayers or gentle blessings, the gentle creak of the wooden yoke as it moves with the water bearer's steady gait, and the steady, rhythmic drip, drip, drip of the water from the cracked bucket, each drop a small offering to the earth, a liquid gift that nourishes the moss and flowers that grow along the path's edge. As you walk, you begin to notice that, where the drops from the cracked bucket fall, something beautiful happens. The moss grows greener, more lush and vibrant. Tiny wildflowers spring up, their colors bright and cheerful, as if they are celebrating the gift of water that has been given to them. The very stones of the path seem to shine more brightly where the drops have touched them, as if they have been blessed by this liquid offering. You realize that what seemed like a flaw, a source of loss and waste, is actually creating beauty, nurturing life, leaving a trail of blessing in its wake. The cracked bucket is not broken, it is transformed, serving a purpose that a perfect bucket never could, teaching a lesson that only imperfection can teach, showing that sometimes our wounds become our gifts, our struggles become our strengths, our broken places become the very sources of our ability to heal and bless the world. Asterisk, asterisk. Journey 1. The Valley of Grief. Asterisk, asterisk. The path begins to descend now, a gentle, winding slope that leads you down into a quiet, shaded valley. The transition is gradual, almost imperceptible at first, like the slow shift from day to evening, from summer to autumn, from one season of life to another. The air grows cooler here, a noticeable shift from the gentle warmth of the open path, carrying with it the scent of deeper places, of hidden springs and secret groves where the sun's rays filter through layers of green leaves to create a cathedral of living light. The light becomes soft and diffused, filtered through the thick, verdant canopy of ancient, wise trees that seem to lean in towards each other, their branches intertwining like the clasped hands of old friends who have weathered many storms together. These are trees that have stood for centuries, perhaps millennia, their roots running deep into the earth, their crowns reaching toward the sky, their trunks bearing the scars and stories of countless seasons, countless storms, countless moments of both struggle and peace. The sound of the dripping water from the cracked bucket seems to grow a little louder in the profound stillness of this place, each drop a soft, percussive note in the quiet symphony of the forest, a steady, rhythmic reminder of the sorrow that is being carried, transformed, and offered as a gift to the world. The water-bearer walks with the same steady, unhurried pace, their presence a calm and reassuring anchor in the deepening quiet, their feet making almost no sound on the mossy ground, as if they have learned to walk so lightly that they barely disturb the peace of this sacred place. As you enter the valley, you notice that the landscape has changed in a way that feels both subtle and profound, like stepping from one world into another, from the bright clarity of day into the gentle mystery of twilight. The vibrant, sun-loving wildflowers that dotted the upper path have given way to a different, more introspective kind of beauty, a beauty that speaks not of celebration and joy, but of depth and contemplation, of the quiet wisdom that comes only through experience of both light and shadow. Here, in the cool, moist shade, the ground is covered with a lush, unbroken carpet of deep green moss, so soft and velvety to the touch that it seems to invite you to lie down and rest, to surrender to the gentle embrace of the earth itself. The moss glows with its own inner light, a soft, phosphorescent green that seems to pulse gently with the rhythm of some deep, underground heartbeat, as if the very earth is breathing beneath your feet. Delicate, shade-loving ferns unfurl their intricate, lace-like fronds in a slow, graceful dance of life, their patterns so complex and beautiful that they seem like living mandalas, sacred geometries, written in green ink by the hand of nature itself. Each frond is a masterpiece of design, with tiny leaflets arranged in perfect spirals and curves that speak of mathematical principles too profound for the human mind to fully comprehend, yet simple enough for the heart to recognize as expressions of divine beauty. The air is filled with the rich, earthy scent of damp soil, dark and loamy, and full of the promise of new life, of decaying leaves that have given up their individual existence to become part of the great cycle of death and rebirth that governs all of nature, and of the cool, wet stones that line the small, meandering stream that now appears beside the path, its water running clear and cold over smooth pebbles, singing a quiet song of patience and persistence, and the gentle power of water to shape even the hardest stone. It is the smell of life returning to its source, of endings and beginnings, being part of the same sacred, unbroken cycle, of the great mystery that transforms death into life, sorrow into wisdom, loss into love. This is the scent of the earth's own grief and healing, the way the forest processes its losses and transforms them into new growth, new beauty, new life. The stream beside the path babbles softly as it flows, its voice a gentle murmur of comfort and understanding, as if it has heard many stories of sorrow and loss in its long journey from mountain spring to distant sea, and has learned to offer the healing balm of its presence to all who come to its banks, seeking solace. The water is so clear that you can see every pebble on the bottom, every grain of sand, every tiny fish that darts between the rocks like a living jewel. Along the banks of the stream, you notice small shrines and offerings left by previous travelers. A smooth stone placed just so, a small bouquet of wildflowers, a piece of driftwood carved with symbols of love and remembrance. These are the offerings of those who have walked this path before you, who have come to this valley carrying their own sorrows and have found here a place to honor their losses, to acknowledge their pain, and to begin the slow, sacred work of healing. The water-bearer stops beside a large, moss-covered stone, a silent and ancient witness to the passing of countless seasons. Its surface, a miniature world of its own, with tiny ecosystems of lichen and moss thriving in its crevices, small gardens of life that have found a way to flourish in the most unlikely places. The stone is warm to the touch, as if it has been absorbing not just sunlight, but also the love and tears of all who have rested against it, storing up that emotional warmth to offer comfort to future travelers. They gently, and with great care, lower the wooden yoke from their shoulders and place the 2 buckets on the ground with the reverence of one handling sacred objects. The perfect bucket sits stable and upright, its clear water reflecting the filtered light like a mirror of liquid silver. The cracked bucket tilts slightly, continuing its steady offering of drops to the moss below, each drop a small prayer, a liquid blessing that feeds the green life at their feet. They turn to you, their eyes full of a deep and gentle compassion that seems to understand the very depths of your own heart, to see the sorrows you carry, the losses you have endured, the grief that you may have been trying to outrun or deny or simply survive. There is no judgment in their gaze, no attempt to fix or change or minimize your pain, only a profound acceptance and understanding that speaks of their own journey through this valley, their own intimate acquaintance with the landscape of loss. This is the valley of grief, they say, their voice a soft and soothing murmur that blends with the gentle sounds of the valley, the whisper of wind through leaves, the babble of the stream, the distant call of a bird singing its evening song. It is a place of sorrow, of loss, of heartbreak. It is a place that most people try to avoid, to run from, to pretend does not exist. We live in a world that tells us to get over it, to move on, to look on the bright side, as if grief were a problem to be solved, rather than a sacred process to be honored. The water-bearer's gaze moves across the valley, taking in its quiet beauty, its gentle shadows, its atmosphere of profound peace. But it is also a place of profound healing, of deep wisdom, and of a quiet and resilient strength that can only be forged in the fires of loss and tempered in the waters of tears. This valley teaches us that grief is not the enemy of joy, but its deepest teacher. It shows us that our capacity to mourn is the measure of our capacity to love, that our willingness to feel the full depth of our sorrow is what opens us to the full height of our joy. They gesture to the moss-covered stone, inviting you to sit. Let us rest here for a while, and honor the sacred work that is done in this valley. Let us sit with our sorrows, not as burdens to be carried, but as teachers to be honored, as sacred guests who have come to show us something important about the nature of love, about the preciousness of what we have been given, about the courage it takes to open our hearts fully to life, knowing that everything we love will one day be lost to us, and choosing to love anyway. You sit down on the soft moss beside the water-bearer, your heart filled with a mixture of curiosity and a gentle, understandable trepidation. You have spent so much of your life, so much of your energy, trying to avoid this valley, trying to pretend it isn't there, trying to outrun the steady drip, drip, drip of your own cracked bucket. You have been taught to fear grief, to see it as a sign of weakness, a failure to cope, a problem to be solved as quickly as possible. And now, you are being invited to do the one thing you have always feared, to sit in the heart of the valley, to look at its shadows without flinching, to honor its sacred and painful beauty, to acknowledge that this place, too, is part of the landscape of a fully lived life. You feel a trembling in your chest, a flutter of anxiety mixed with something else, a deep, wordless longing to finally stop running, to finally allow yourself to feel what you have been carrying, to finally give your grief the honor and attention it deserves. The water bearer seems to sense your inner struggle, the war between your desire to flee and your deeper need to heal. They reach out and place a gentle hand on your shoulder, a touch so full of compassion and understanding that you feel something tight and guarded in your chest begin to soften and open, like a flower that has been closed against the cold, finally feeling the warmth of spring sunshine. There is no rush, they say softly. Grief has its own timing, its own rhythm, its own sacred pace. We cannot force it, cannot hurry it, cannot make it conform to our schedules or our expectations. We can only create space for it, offer it our presence, our attention, our willingness to be with what is, rather than what we wish were different. The water bearer reaches into the cracked bucket, their movements slow, gentle, and full of a deep and tender reverence, as if they are handling the most precious and fragile of treasures, artifacts from the museum of the heart that must be treated with the utmost care and respect. They pull out an object, and as they hold it in their hands, it seems to shimmer with a soft, internal, and sorrowful light, as if it contains within itself all the tears that have ever been shed, all the hearts that have ever been broken, all the love that has ever been lost. It is a single, perfect tear, crystallized into the shape of a beautiful, translucent pearl, its surface smooth and luminous, catching the filtered light of the valley and reflecting it back in soft, rainbow hues. It is cool to the touch, yet it seems to hold a universe of warmth within it, the warmth of all the love that gave birth to this sorrow, all the connection that made this loss so profound, all the beauty that made this ending so heartbreaking. This, the water bearer says, their voice a soft whisper that seems to rise from the very heart of the valley, from the deep places where sorrow is transformed into wisdom, where pain is alchemized into compassion, where the broken heart learns to beat with a rhythm that encompasses both joy and sorrow, both love and loss, is the tear of a great loss, the loss of a love that felt like the sun itself, warming every corner of your world, giving light and life to everything it touched, the loss of a dream that gave life its meaning, that painted the future in colors of hope and possibility, the loss of a future that was hoped for with every fiber of one's being, planned for, prepared for, lived for, only to be swept away in a moment, leaving behind only the echo of what might have been. They hold the pearl up to the soft, filtered light that dapples through the leaves of the ancient trees, and you can see that deep within its milky, opalescent depths, there is a swirling galaxy of colors, a universe of memories dancing in liquid light. You see shared laughter that bubbled up like spring water, spontaneous and pure and full of joy. You see quiet moments of connection, those precious times when two souls touched across the vast loneliness of existence and found in each other a home, a refuge, a place of perfect understanding and acceptance. You see a love that was as real and as vast as the sky itself, a love that transformed ordinary moments into sacred experiences, that made the mundane magical, that turned a simple life into an epic poem of devotion and care. You see all of this swirling in the depths of the pearl, not lost, not destroyed, but preserved, crystallized, made eternal in this small, perfect vessel of memory and love. For a long, long time, the water-bearer continues, their voice filled with a profound and gentle wisdom born of their own journey through this valley, their own intimate acquaintance with the geography of loss. I saw this tear only as a symbol of my pain, of my emptiness, of a wound that would never heal. I tried to hide it, to bury it deep within myself, to pretend it didn't exist. I was ashamed of my grief, embarrassed by my inability to get over it, frustrated by my failure to move on, according to the timeline that others seem to expect. The water-bearer's eyes grow distant for a moment, as if they are looking back across the years to that earlier version of themselves, that person who had not yet learned the sacred lessons of this valley. I carried this tear like a secret burden, a hidden weight that grew heavier with each passing day. I thought that if I could just ignore it long enough, it would disappear. I thought that if I could just stay busy enough, distracted enough, positive enough, the pain would eventually fade away and leave me free to live a normal life again. They shake their heads slowly, a gesture full of compassion for that earlier self, that person who had not yet understood that grief is not a problem to be solved, but a sacred process to be honored. But the more I resisted it, the heavier it became, until its weight was a constant, crushing presence in my heart. It colored everything I saw, tainted every joy, cast a shadow over every moment of beauty or peace. I was not healing. I was slowly dying inside, suffocating under the weight of unexpressed sorrow. The water-bearer turns the pearl slowly in their hands, watching the light play across its surface, seeing in its depths not just sorrow, but something else, something that transforms the very nature of the grief it contains. Then, one day, they say, their voice taking on a quality of wonder, as if they are still amazed by the discovery they made, I decided to stop running. I decided to look at the tear, to really see it, to hold it in my hand and feel its story, to listen to what it had to teach me instead of trying to silence its voice. And I realized, with a clarity that was both heartbreaking and liberating, that the tear was not just a symbol of my pain, it was also a testament to the depth of my love. The grief was so great only because the love was so vast. The emptiness was so profound only because the connection was so deep and so true. The sorrow was so overwhelming only because the joy had been so complete, so transformative, so life-changing. The water-bearer's voice grows stronger, more certain, filled with the authority of hard-won wisdom. In that moment, the tear was transformed. It was no longer just a symbol of my loss. It became a jewel, a precious and sacred testament to the beauty and the power of my love, a love that death could not diminish, that time could not erase, that nothing in this world or any other could ever take away from me. The tear became not a burden but a treasure, not a wound but a badge of honor, proof that I had loved fully, completely, without reservation or protection. Let your own heart be still as you gaze upon this beautiful shimmering pearl, this crystallized tear that holds within itself the entire story of love and loss, of connection and separation, of the courage it takes to open your heart fully to another being, knowing that such opening makes you vulnerable to the deepest pain, and choosing to love anyway, because the alternative, a life without love, without connection, without the risk of loss, is not really living at all. Allow yourself to think of your own losses, your own heartbreaks, the people and the dreams and the possibilities that you have loved and lost. Feel the pain of them. Yes, allow it to be there, to have its place, to speak its truth. but also allow yourself to feel the love that is inextricably bound up with that pain, the love that gave birth to the sorrow, the love that makes the loss so profound and so meaningful. Your grief is not a sign of your weakness. It is a testament to your magnificent capacity to love, to connect, to care deeply about something beyond yourself. It is a jewel, a precious and sacred part of your own unique and beautiful story, a story that is richer and more profound because of the love that you have known, because of the risks you have taken, because of the courage you have shown in opening your heart to the possibility of both joy and sorrow. The water-bearer gently places the pearl on the moss-covered stone, and it seems to glow with a soft, peaceful, and self-contained light, a tiny moon in the green, shaded world of the valley, a beacon of hope for all who carry similar tears, similar losses, similar testimonies to the power and beauty of love. The pearl sits there like a small altar, a shrine to all the love that has been lost and found, lost and transformed, lost and made eternal through the alchemy of memory and honor. Then they reach into the cracked bucket again, their movements still slow and reverent, still full of the deep respect that sacred objects deserve. This time, they pull out a handful of ashes, grey and fine and lifeless, the remains of something that once burned bright and warm and full of energy, now reduced to this powdery residue that speaks of endings, of destruction, of the way fire can consume everything we thought was solid and permanent, and leave behind only dust and memory. These, they say, their voice a quiet and somber murmur that matches the grey solemnity of what they hold, are the ashes of a world that has burned down, the ashes of a life that was, a future that was planned, a sense of self that felt solid and secure and unshakable. These are the remains of all the assumptions we make about how life will unfold, all the plans we make for tomorrow, all the identities we construct around our roles and relationships and achievements, not knowing how quickly it can all be reduced to ash. The water-bearer lets some of the ashes sift through their fingers, watching as they fall to the moss below, where they will eventually become part of the soil, part of the cycle of death and rebirth that governs all of life. For a long time, I held on to these ashes, sifting through them again and again, searching for something that was lost, for a reason, for an explanation that would make sense of the destruction, that would restore order to the chaos, that would bring back what had been taken away. You can see in the water-bearer's eyes the memory of that desperate searching, that frantic attempt to find meaning in meaninglessness, to reconstruct from the ruins something that resembled the life that had been lost. I was lost in the smoke, unable to see the sky, unable to breathe. I carried these ashes everywhere I went, a constant reminder of what I had lost, what had been taken from me, what would never be again. I became a curator of destruction, a keeper of ruins, more attached to what was gone than open to what might come. You feel the dry, choking dust of your own ashes in your throat, the bitter taste of dreams that have crumbled, plans that have fallen apart, identities that have been stripped away by circumstances beyond your control. You know the feeling of a world that has been turned to rubble, of a future that has vanished in the flames of unexpected change, of loss, of betrayal, of illness, of any of the 1,000 ways that life can suddenly shift course and leave us standing in the ruins of everything we thought we knew about ourselves and our place in the world. You know the disorientation, the despair, the feeling of being lost in a grey and desolate landscape with no map and no compass, no familiar landmarks to guide you, no clear path forward. You know what it feels like to sift through the ashes of your former life, looking for something, anything, that might have survived the fire, that might serve as a foundation for rebuilding, that might offer some clue about how to move forward when everything you thought you could count on has been reduced to dust. But then, the water-bearer says, their voice taking on a different quality, a note of quiet strength and resilience that speaks of hard-won wisdom, of lessons learned in the crucible of loss and transformation. I learned to let the ashes be ashes. I learned to grieve for the world that was lost, without trying to rebuild it from the ruins. I learned to sit in the emptiness, in the not knowing, in the profound and terrifying uncertainty of a future that was unwritten, unplanned, completely open to possibilities I could not yet imagine. The water-bearer's voice grows stronger, more certain, filled with the authority of someone who has walked through the fire and emerged, not unscathed, but transformed. I learned that sometimes destruction is not the end of the story, but the beginning of a new chapter. Sometimes the fire that burns down our old life is not a tragedy but a liberation, clearing away what was no longer serving us, making space for something new to grow, something we never could have imagined while we were still clinging to the familiar structures of our former existence. And in that emptiness, in that space cleared by fire and loss, something new began to stir, a tiny, green shoot of a new possibility, a new way of being, a new and unexpected life, pushing its way up through the ashes, like a phoenix rising from its own destruction, like hope emerging from despair, like love growing in the soil of loss. The water-bearer opens their hand, and the ashes are carried away by a gentle breeze, dancing and swirling in the soft light before disappearing into the forest, returning to the earth from which they came, becoming part of the great cycle of death and rebirth that governs all of nature. And in their empty palm, you can see the faint green outline of a tiny emerging seedling, so small and tender that it seems impossible it could have survived the fire. Yet there it is, proof that life finds a way, that new growth can emerge from the most unlikely places, that endings are also beginnings. Let the image of this tiny seedling be a source of hope and of courage for your own heart, a reminder that you are more resilient than you know, more capable of renewal than you can imagine. Your world may have burned down, but you are not destroyed. You are not the ashes of your former life. You are the seed of your future self, carrying within you all the potential for new growth, new possibilities, new ways of being that you have not yet discovered. The ashes of your old life can become the fertile ground for a new and more authentic life to grow, a life that is not built on the expectations of others or the assumptions of your former self, but on the deeper truth of who you really are, who you are becoming, who you have always been beneath all the roles and identities that may have been stripped away. You do not have to know what that life will look like. You just have to be willing to sit in the emptiness, to wait with a patient and compassionate heart, and to trust in the resilient and life-affirming power of your own spirit. The water-bearer reaches into the cracked bucket one last time, their movements still reverent, still full of the deep respect that sacred objects deserve. This time, they pull out a heavy iron key, its surface dark with rust, cold to the touch, bearing the weight of years and the patina of neglect. It is the kind of key that speaks of doors long locked, of rooms sealed away, of parts of the self that have been closed off and forgotten, deemed too dangerous or too painful to access. This, they say, their voice a quiet and steady murmur that carries the weight of deep understanding, is the key to a door that I kept locked for a very long time, the door to my own heart. In my grief, in my fear, in my desperate attempt to protect myself from further pain, I locked it tight, turned the key, and threw it away, or so I thought. I was afraid to feel, afraid to love, afraid to be vulnerable again, afraid to risk the possibility of another loss, another heartbreak, another journey through this valley of sorrow. The water-bearer turns the key over in their hands, examining, its rust-covered surface, its worn edges, its heavy weight. I thought that if I kept my heart locked away, sealed off from the world, I could keep it safe from any further pain. I thought that if I never loved again, never opened myself to connection, never allowed myself to care deeply about anything or anyone, I could avoid ever having to return to this valley, ever having to feel the crushing weight of loss again. You feel the cold, heavy weight of your own locked doors, the ways that you have closed yourself off from life in an attempt to protect yourself from pain. You know the strategies of the wounded heart, the walls built high and thick, the moats dug deep and wide, the drawbridges pulled up and secured, all in service of the illusion that safety can be found in isolation, that peace can be achieved through disconnection, that the heart can be protected by being imprisoned. You know the loneliness of the locked heart, the isolation that comes from cutting yourself off from the very connections that give life meaning and purpose. You know the quiet and pervasive sense of numbness that settles over a life lived behind walls, the way colors fade and sounds become muffled, and even joy feels distant and unreal when experienced from behind the barriers we erect to protect ourselves from sorrow. But then, the water-bearer says, their gaze steady and clear, their presence a beacon of quiet courage in the gentle shadows of the valley, I realized that a locked heart is not a safe heart. It is a prison, and the person it imprisons is not the world, which goes on loving and losing and living with or without our participation, but ourselves. We become the jailers of our own souls, the wardens of our own capacity for joy, the guards standing watch over our own ability to experience the full spectrum of human emotion. The water-bearer's voice grows stronger, more passionate, filled with the conviction of someone who has learned this lesson at great cost and wants to spare others the same unnecessary suffering. I learned that there is no safety in a locked heart, only a slow and quiet death, a gradual withering of everything that makes life worth living. I learned that the choice is not between pain and no pain, but between the pain of an open heart that loves and loses and loves again, and the pain of a closed heart that neither loves nor loses, but simply exists in a grey twilight of emotional numbness. And I learned that the only way to be truly free, truly alive, truly human, was to find the courage to open the door, to feel the pain, to risk the heartbreak, and to love again, despite the certainty that everything I love will one day be lost to me. And so, with a trembling hand, with a heart full of fear and hope in equal measure, I put the key in the lock and turned it, and the door to my own heart swung open, and the light came flooding in. The water-bearer holds the key in the palm of their hand, and as you watch, something miraculous happens. The rust seems to fall away, like old skin being shed, revealing the bright metal beneath. The iron begins to glow with a warm, golden light, as if it has been touched by some inner fire, some transformative energy that turns base metal into precious gold. It is no longer a key to a prison, but a key to a treasure, the treasure of your own open, feeling, and courageous heart. Let your own locked doors be held in this gentle, compassionate light. Know that you have the key. You have always had the key. It may be rusty from disuse, heavy with the weight of old fears, cold from years of neglect, but it is there, waiting for you to pick it up, to clean it off, to use it to unlock the doors you have closed in your attempt to stay safe. You have the courage. You may not feel it right now, may not believe it exists within you, but it is there, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be called forth by your willingness to risk, to feel, to love, despite the certainty of loss. You can choose to open the door. You can choose to feel again, to love again, to live again, with an open heart that embraces both joy and sorrow, both connection and loss, both the ecstasy of love and the agony of grief. It is the bravest and most beautiful choice you will ever make, the choice to live with an open heart in a world that will break it again and again, the choice to love, knowing that everything you love will one day be lost to you, the choice to feel deeply in a world that often seems designed to numb us, to disconnect us, to convince us that safety lies in isolation, rather than in the courage to remain open, vulnerable, and fully alive. The water-bearer places the glowing key on the moss beside the pearl and the seedling. The three objects sit together in a strange and beautiful harmony, each one a testament to a different aspect of the journey of grief, each one transformed from a source of pain into a source of wisdom, of compassion, and of a deep and resilient strength that can only be forged in the fires of loss and tempered in the waters of tears. The tear of loss, now revealed as a jewel of love, the ashes of destruction, now shown to be the fertile soil of new growth, the key of the locked heart, now glowing with the golden light of courage and openness. Together, they tell the story of grief's transformation, the way sorrow can be alchemized into wisdom, pain into compassion, loss into a deeper capacity for love. And you are grateful for your own grief, for your own tears, your own ashes, your own locked doors. You begin to see them not as enemies to be vanquished, not as problems to be solved, not as signs of weakness or failure, but as sacred teachers, as precious and essential parts of your own unique and beautiful journey of healing and of becoming. You understand now that grief is not the opposite of love, but love's deepest expression. You see that sorrow is not the enemy of joy, but its most profound teacher. You realize that the broken heart is not a damaged heart, but a heart that has been broken open, cracked wide enough to let in more light, more love, more compassion than it ever could have contained when it was whole and protected and closed. Let yourself rest now, in the deep and healing peace of this quiet valley, this sacred space where sorrow is honored and transformed, where tears are recognized as jewels, where ashes become fertile soil, where locked hearts are opened with keys of courage and compassion. Let the gentle, wise presence of the water-bearer be a soothing lullaby for your soul, a reminder that you are not alone in your grief, that others have walked this path before you and found their way through to the other side. Know that your grief is not a mistake, not a malfunction, not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sacred and holy process, a journey of love, of healing, and of transformation that will, in its own time and in its own way, lead you to a deeper understanding of what it means to be human, what it means to love, what it means to live with an open heart in a world that is both beautiful and heartbreaking, both full of wonder and full of loss. Rest now. Rest in the knowledge that you are whole, even in your brokenness. Rest in the understanding that you are healing, even in your pain. Rest in the certainty that you are held in a love that is vast enough and strong enough and compassionate enough to embrace all of your sorrows, all of your fears, all of your broken and beautiful pieces. Sleep now. Sleep deeply and peacefully, cradled in the gentle arms of this valley that has witnessed so much sorrow and so much healing, so much loss and so much transformation. Sleep knowing that when you wake, you will carry with you the gifts of this place, the pearl of honored love, the seedling of new possibility, the golden key of an open heart. Sleep, and let your dreams be filled with the gentle light of hope, the warm embrace of compassion, and the quiet strength that comes from having walked through the valley of grief and emerged not unscathed, but transformed. Asterisk, asterisk. Journey 2. The Forest of Fear. Asterisk, asterisk. After what feels like hours of deep restorative rest in the sacred valley of grief, the water-bearer gently and lovingly returns the pearl of crystallized tears, the handful of transformed ashes, and the golden key of the open heart to the cracked bucket. They handle these sacred objects not with a sense of burden, but with the tender reverence of one who has learned to see beauty in brokenness, wisdom in wounds, and gifts in what others might consider garbage. Each object is placed carefully, mindfully, as if it were a precious jewel being returned to a treasure chest, which, in a way, it is. They lift the wooden yoke back onto their shoulders with the same graceful ease they have shown throughout your journey together, the two buckets finding their familiar and balanced place on either side of their body. The perfect bucket continues to hold its clear, sparkling water, while the cracked bucket continues its steady offering of drops to the earth below, each drop a small blessing, a liquid prayer that nourishes whatever it touches. The water-bearer turns to you with that same soft, knowing smile that has become as familiar and comforting as the sound of their voice, their eyes clear and bright with a light that seems to come from some inexhaustible source of inner peace. With a gentle nod, they invite you to continue the journey, and you rise from your resting place on the moss-covered stone, feeling somehow lighter than when you sat down, as if some invisible burden has been lifted from your shoulders, some knot of tension has been loosened in your chest. The path leads you up and out of the valley of grief, winding its way through a landscape that gradually changes as you climb. The soft, filtered light of the valley gives way to something different, something that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, though you cannot quite say why. The air grows cooler, and there is a quality to it that speaks of hidden places, of secrets kept in shadow, of things that prefer to remain unseen. As you walk, you notice that the trees are changing. The wise ancient guardians of the valley, with their broad trunks and spreading canopies, give way to something altogether different. These new trees are taller, darker, their trunks straight and narrow, their branches reaching upward like grasping fingers. They grow closer together here, their canopies intertwining to create a thick green ceiling that blocks out most of the sky, allowing only scattered beams of sunlight to penetrate to the forest floor below. And then, quite suddenly, you find yourself standing at the edge of a vast forest, a forest unlike any you have ever seen or imagined. The trees here are enormous, ancient beyond measure, their trunks so wide that it would take a dozen people holding hands to encircle them. They rise up into the darkness above, like the pillars of some vast natural cathedral, their tops lost in shadow and mist, their presence both magnificent and somehow ominous. The forest floor is carpeted with a thick layer of fallen leaves, decades, or perhaps centuries of autumn offerings that have created a soft, spongy surface that seems to absorb sound, making even your footsteps seem muffled and distant. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying vegetation, but also with something else, something harder to identify, a smell that speaks of hidden places, of things that grow in darkness, and of secrets that have been buried so deep they have begun to ferment and change into something altogether different from what they once were. The water-bearer stops at the forest's edge and turns to you, their expression more serious now, though no less compassionate. There is a quality of gentle warning in their eyes, not of danger in the conventional sense, but of the kind of challenge that requires courage, the kind of journey that asks you to face what you would rather avoid, to look at what you would prefer to keep hidden, to walk into the very places that your instincts tell you to flee from. This, they say, their voice softer now, as if they are mindful of what might be listening in the shadows, is the forest of fear. It is a place of shadows and whispers, of things half seen and barely understood. It is the landscape of our deepest anxieties, our most persistent worries, our darkest imaginings about what might go wrong, what might hurt us, what might destroy everything we hold dear. You feel a familiar chill run down your spine, a tightening in your chest that you recognize all too well. You know this forest, though you have never seen it before. You have walked its shadowy paths in your mind countless times, have felt its dark presence lurking at the edges of your consciousness, have heard its whispers in the quiet moments when your defenses are down and your fears are free to roam. It is a place that most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid, the water-bearer continues, their gaze steady and understanding. We build our lives around the edges of this forest, always aware of its presence, always afraid that we might accidentally wander into its depths. We make our decisions based on staying as far away from it as possible, choosing safety over adventure, certainty over possibility, the known over the unknown, all in service of the illusion that we can somehow avoid ever having to enter this place. The water-bearer's expression softens, and you see in their eyes the deep compassion of one who has walked these dark paths and emerged not unscathed, but transformed. But it is also a place of profound liberation, of deep healing, and of a courage that can only be discovered in the heart of what we fear most. This forest teaches us that our fears are not our enemies, but our teachers. It shows us that the things we are most afraid of are often the very things that hold the keys to our freedom, our growth, our transformation into who we are truly meant to be. They gesture toward the dark opening between the trees, where the path disappears into shadow and uncertainty. The only way out of this forest is through it. The only way to be free of our fears is to face them, to walk with them, to listen to what they have to teach us. And the only way to discover our true courage is to find it in the very heart of what terrifies us most. With these words, the water-bearer steps into the forest, and you feel your heart rate quicken, your breathing become shallow, your body tense with the ancient fight or flight response that has kept humans alive for millennia. Every instinct you have is screaming at you to turn around, to run back to the safety of the valley, to find some other path that doesn't require you to walk into the very heart of your deepest fears. But you also feel something else, something deeper and stronger than fear, though perhaps not louder. You feel the pull of your own growth, your own healing, your own deep longing to be free of the invisible chains that have kept you small, kept you safe, kept you from becoming who you are truly meant to be. And so, with a courage that surprises you, a courage that seems to come from some source deeper than your conscious mind, you take a deep breath and follow the water-bearer into the forest. The moment you step beneath the canopy of trees, the world changes. The temperature drops noticeably, and the quality of light becomes strange, filtered and green and somehow alive with movement, as if the shadows themselves are breathing, shifting, watching. The sounds of the outside world fade away completely, replaced by the subtle sounds of the forest, the creak of ancient wood, the rustle of unseen creatures moving through the underbrush, the distant call of birds, whose songs sound somehow different here, more haunting, more mysterious. The path winds deeper into the forest, and with each step, you feel the presence of your fears more strongly. They seem to emerge from the shadows like old acquaintances, familiar faces that you have been trying to avoid for years, perhaps decades. There is the fear of failure, that persistent voice that whispers that you are not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough to succeed at anything that really matters. There is the fear of rejection, that aching certainty that if people really knew who you were, really saw your flaws and weaknesses and secret shames, they would turn away in disgust or disappointment. There is the fear of loss, that constant anxiety about all the terrible things that could happen to the people you love, all the ways that life could suddenly change and take away everything that gives your existence meaning and purpose. There is the fear of death, that ultimate unknown that lurks at the end of every path, that final mystery that no amount of planning or preparation can fully prepare you for. And there are smaller fears too, fears that seem almost silly in the light of day, but that take on enormous power in the shadows of this place. The fear of speaking up in a meeting, of trying something new, of being seen, of being invisible, of being too much, of not being enough, the fear of spiders and heights and enclosed spaces and open spaces and 1,000 other things that your rational mind knows are unlikely to hurt you, but that your primitive brain treats as mortal threats. As you walk deeper into the forest, these fears seem to take on a life of their own, manifesting as shapes in the shadows, as whispers in the wind, as the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Your heart pounds, your palms sweat, your breathing becomes rapid and shallow. Every fiber of your being is screaming at you to turn around, to run, to get out of this place as quickly as possible. But the water-bearer walks on, their pace steady and unhurried, their presence a calm anchor in the storm of your anxiety. They seem unafraid, not because they don't feel the fears you can see in their eyes, that they are as aware of the shadows as you are, but because they have learned something that you are just beginning to understand. That fear is not the enemy, but the teacher, not the obstacle, but the path itself. After what feels like hours of walking through the increasingly dense and shadowy forest, you come to a small clearing, a circular space where the trees have drawn back to create a natural amphitheater. In the center of the clearing stands a single, enormous tree, its trunk so massive and ancient that it seems less like a plant than like a living mountain, a pillar that connects the earth to the sky, the physical world, to the realm of spirit and mystery. The tree's bark is dark and deeply furrowed, marked with scars and symbols that speak of great age and great wisdom. Its branches spread out in all directions, creating a canopy so thick that only the faintest traces of light filter through to the forest floor below. And yet, there is something about this tree that is not frightening but comforting, not ominous but protective, as if it has stood guard over this clearing for so long that it has become a sanctuary, a place of safety in the heart of the very thing that terrifies you most. The water-bearer gently lowers the yoke from their shoulders and places the 2 buckets at the base of the great tree, their movements slow and reverent, as if they are performing a sacred ritual that has been repeated countless times by countless travelers who have found their way to this place. They turn to you, their eyes full of understanding and compassion, and gesture for you to sit on one of the massive roots that emerges from the earth like a natural bench. "Let us rest here," they say, their voice barely above a whisper, as if they are mindful of disturbing the profound silence of this place, and learn what our fears have come to teach us. You sit down on the root, feeling its solid, ancient strength beneath you, and for the first time since entering the forest, you feel a measure of peace, a sense that you are safe, that you are held, that whatever happens here, you will not face it alone. The water-bearer sits beside you, their presence warm and reassuring, and together you sit in the profound silence of the clearing, listening to the subtle sounds of the forest, feeling the weight of centuries of wisdom that seems to emanate from the great tree above you. After a long moment of silence, the water-bearer reaches into the cracked bucket and pulls out an object that makes your breath catch in your throat. It is a mirror, but not an ordinary mirror. Its surface is dark and clouded, as if it has been covered with soot or tarnish, and when you look into it, you cannot see your reflection clearly. Instead, you see shapes and shadows, distorted images that seem to shift and change even as you watch, showing you not who you are, but who you fear you might be. or who you fear others see when they look at you. This, the water-bearer says, their voice gentle but firm, is the mirror of our deepest fears about ourselves. For so long, I carried this mirror with me everywhere I went, constantly checking my reflection, constantly worried about what others might see when they looked at me. I was terrified that they would see through my carefully constructed facade and discover the truth, that I was a fraud, a failure, a person who didn't deserve love or respect or success. You know this mirror all too well. You have looked into it countless times, have seen in its clouded surface all your worst fears about yourself reflected back at you. You have seen the face of the imposter, the person who is just pretending to know what they're doing, who is always one mistake away from being exposed as a fake. You have seen the face of the unlovable one, the person who is too flawed, too damaged, too much or not enough to ever be truly accepted by another human being. I would stare into this mirror for hours, the water-bearer continues, searching for evidence of my unworthiness, cataloguing my flaws, rehearsing all the ways I might fail or disappoint or be rejected. The mirror became my constant companion, my most trusted advisor, the voice that guided all my decisions and shaped all my choices. I lived my life in service to what I saw in this clouded reflection, always trying to hide my true self, always performing a version of who I thought I should be, rather than risking the vulnerability of being who I actually was. The water-bearer turns the mirror over in their hands, examining its tarnished surface with the detached curiosity of a scientist studying a specimen. But then I learned something that changed everything. I learned that this mirror was not showing me the truth about myself, but the truth about my fears. The clouded surface was not reflecting my actual flaws, but my anxiety about having flaws. The distorted images were not showing me who I really was, but who I was afraid I might be. And I realized that I had been living my entire life in reaction to a lie, making all my choices based on a distorted reflection that had nothing to do with reality and everything to do with the fears that had been planted in me by a world that profits from our insecurities, that gains power from our self-doubt, that keeps us small and manageable by convincing us that we are not worthy of love, success, happiness, or peace. The water-bearer breathes on the mirror's surface and begins to polish it with the sleeve of their robe, their movements slow and deliberate, as if they are performing a sacred ritual of cleansing and purification. As they work, the tarnish begins to fall away, the clouds begin to part, and slowly, gradually, the true surface of the mirror is revealed. And when you look into it now, you see something completely different. You see your own face, but not as you have ever seen it before. You see yourself with eyes of compassion rather than criticism, with a gaze of love rather than judgment. You see the beauty in your imperfections, the strength in your vulnerabilities, the wisdom in your wounds. You see not the person you fear you are, but the person you actually are, flawed and beautiful, broken and whole, human and divine, worthy of love, not because you are perfect, but because you exist. Let this clear, clean mirror be a gift to your own heart, a reminder that the fears you carry about yourself are not facts but fictions, not truths but terrors that have been given more power than they deserve. You are not the distorted reflection of your anxieties. You are not the sum of your flaws or the catalogue of your mistakes. You are a unique and precious expression of life itself, worthy of love and respect and kindness, especially from yourself. The water-bearer places the now clear mirror against the base of the great tree, where it reflects the filtered light of the forest in gentle, dancing patterns. Then they reach into the cracked bucket again and pull out what appears to be a small, flickering flame. But as you look more closely, you realize it is not fire at all, but something else entirely, a small, glowing ember of pure anxiety, pulsing with nervous energy, radiating waves of worry and fear that you can feel in your own chest. This, they say, holding the ember carefully in their cupped hands, is the flame of constant worry, the fire that burns in the mind, that cannot rest, cannot trust, cannot believe that things will be okay. For years, I fed this flame with my attention, with my energy, with my constant vigilance against all the terrible things that might happen. I thought that if I worried enough, if I planned for every possible disaster, if I remained constantly alert to every potential threat, I could somehow prevent bad things from happening. You feel the heat of your own worry flame in your chest, that familiar burning sensation that comes with anxiety, the way your mind races through endless scenarios of disaster and catastrophe, always searching for the next thing to fear, the next problem to solve, the next threat to defend against. You know the exhaustion that comes from carrying this flame, the way it burns through your energy and your peace, leaving you depleted and afraid. But I learned that worry is not preparation, the water-bearer says, their voice filled with the authority of hard-won wisdom. Anxiety is not protection. Fear is not prevention. All my worrying never prevented a single bad thing from happening, but it did prevent me from enjoying the good things that were happening all around me, all the time. It robbed me of the present moment, the only moment in which life actually occurs, the only moment in which peace and joy and love are actually available. I learned that this flame of worry was not keeping me safe, it was keeping me prisoner. It was not protecting me from danger, it was creating danger where none existed. It was not preparing me for the future, it was preventing me from living in the present. The water-bearer holds the ember up to their lips and blows on it gently, not to extinguish it, but to transform it. As their breath touches the anxious flame, it begins to change, its frantic, nervous energy settling into something calmer, steadier, more peaceful. The harsh orange light of anxiety transforms into the soft golden glow of awareness, the burning heat of worry cooling into the gentle warmth of presence. I learned to transform the energy of my anxiety into the energy of awareness, they explain, watching as the ember continues to change in their hands. Instead of using my sensitivity to imagine disasters, I learned to use it to notice beauty. Instead of using my alertness to scan for threats, I learned to use it to appreciate the gifts of the present moment. Instead of using my caring as fuel for worry, I learned to use it as fuel for love. The transformed ember now glows with a soft, steady light that seems to radiate peace rather than anxiety, calm rather than chaos, presence rather than the frantic energy of a mind that is always somewhere else, always focused on what might go wrong rather than what is actually happening right now. Let your own flame of worry be touched by this gentle breath of transformation. Know that your sensitivity is not a curse but a gift, your alertness not a burden but a blessing, your caring not a source of suffering but a source of strength. You can learn to use these qualities in service of peace rather than anxiety, presence rather than worry, love rather than fear. The water-bearer places the transformed ember next to the clear mirror at the base of the tree, where it continues to glow with its soft, steady light. Then, they reach into the cracked bucket one final time and pull out what appears to be a small, dark seed, so black that it seems to absorb light rather than reflect it, so dense with shadow that it appears to be a tiny piece of the void itself. This, they say, their voice dropping to barely above a whisper, is the seed of our deepest, most primal fear, the fear of death, of ending, of the ultimate unknown that awaits us all. For most of my life, I carried this seed like a poison in my heart, a constant reminder of my mortality, my fragility, my ultimate powerlessness in the face of forces beyond my control. You feel the weight of this seed in your own chest, that cold, heavy presence that reminds you that everything you love will one day be lost, that everyone you care about will eventually die, that you yourself are walking toward an ending that you cannot avoid, cannot postpone indefinitely, cannot fully prepare for, no matter how much you plan or worry or try to control the uncontrollable. This seed poisoned everything for me, the water bearer continues, their voice filled with the memory of that darkness. It made every joy feel temporary, every love feel fragile, every moment feel precious in a way that was more painful than beautiful. I could not enjoy the present because I was always aware of how quickly it would pass. I could not love fully because I was always afraid of losing what I loved. I could not live completely because I was always dying. The water bearer holds the dark seed up to the soft light, filtering through the canopy above, and as they do, something remarkable happens. The seed begins to crack, not with the sound of breaking, but with the sound of opening, of potential being released, of life finding a way to emerge even from the darkest places. But then I learned the deepest secret of this forest, they say, their voice filled with wonder and reverence. I learned that death is not the opposite of life, but its most intimate partner. I learned that the fear of ending is what gives meaning to the middle, that the awareness of mortality is what makes each moment precious, that the certainty of loss is what makes love so brave and beautiful and profound. As the seed continues to crack open, a tiny shoot of the purest, brightest green emerges from its dark shell, reaching toward the light with an energy and determination that seems to defy the very darkness from which it came. It is life emerging from death, hope emerging from despair, light emerging from shadow, beauty emerging from the very heart of what we fear most. I learned that when we stop running from death, we start living, the water bearer says, watching as the tiny shoot continues to grow, to reach, to affirm life in the face of its own inevitable ending. When we stop fearing the end, we start appreciating the middle. When we stop trying to avoid the ultimate loss, we start celebrating the temporary gifts we have been given. This seed taught me that life and death are not enemies but dance partners, not opposites but complementary forces that give meaning and beauty and urgency to each other. It taught me that the goal is not to live forever, but to live fully, not to avoid ending, but to make the middle matter, not to escape mortality, but to embrace it as the very thing that makes our brief time here so precious, so meaningful, so worth celebrating. The water bearer places the sprouting seed next to the mirror and the ember at the base of the great tree, where it continues to grow, its tiny green shoot reaching toward the light with unwavering determination and hope. The three objects sit together in perfect harmony. The clear mirror of self-acceptance, the transformed ember of peaceful awareness, and the sprouting seed of life embracing its own mortality. Together, they tell the story of fear's transformation, the way terror can be alchemized into wisdom, anxiety into awareness, the fear of death into a deeper appreciation for life. They show that our fears are not our enemies but our teachers, not obstacles to be overcome but paths to be walked, not problems to be solved but mysteries to be embraced. As you sit in the profound silence of the clearing, surrounded by the ancient wisdom of the great tree and the gentle presence of the water bearer, you feel something shifting in your own relationship with fear. You begin to see that the shadows you have been running from are not as dark as you thought, that the monsters you have been avoiding are not as powerful as you believed, that the very things you have been most afraid of might actually be the keys to your freedom, your growth, your transformation into who you are truly meant to be. You understand now that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to walk with fear, to listen to what it has to teach, to find in its very presence the seeds of your own strength and wisdom and compassion. You see that the goal is not to eliminate fear from your life, but to transform your relationship with it, to stop being its victim and start being its student, to stop running from it and start dancing with it. Let yourself rest now in this place of profound transformation, this clearing in the heart of the forest, where fears are faced and transformed, where shadows are illuminated and integrated, where the very things that once terrified you become the sources of your greatest strength and deepest wisdom. Know that you are braver than you believe, stronger than you know, more capable of facing whatever comes than you have ever imagined. The fears that have kept you small, kept you safe, kept you from becoming who you are truly meant to be, are not your masters, but your servants, not your enemies, but your allies, in the great work of becoming fully, authentically, courageously yourself. Rest now in the deep and healing peace of this sacred clearing, this sanctuary in the heart of what you once feared most. Let the gentle wisdom of the water-bearer be a soothing lullaby for your anxious mind, a reminder that you are not alone in your fears, that others have walked this path before you and found their way through to the other side. Sleep now, if sleep will come, cradled in the protective embrace of the great tree that has stood guard over this place for centuries, watching over countless travelers who have found their way here seeking courage, seeking healing, seeking the transformation that can only come from facing what we fear most and discovering that we are stronger, braver, more resilient than we ever dared to believe. Sleep, and let your dreams be filled with the soft light of courage, the gentle strength of self-acceptance, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that you have walked through the forest of fear and emerged not unscathed, but transformed, not unchanged, but more fully, authentically, courageously yourself than you have ever been before. Asterisk, asterisk. Journey 3. The Mountain of Anger. Asterisk, asterisk. After a long and deeply restorative rest in the sacred clearing at the heart of the forest of fear, the water-bearer gently and lovingly returns the clear mirror of self-acceptance, the transformed ember of peaceful awareness, and the sprouting seed of life-embracing mortality to the cracked bucket. They handle these sacred objects with the same tender reverence they have shown throughout your journey together, as if each one is a precious teacher whose lessons must be honored and preserved, carried forward into whatever challenges and transformations lie ahead. They lift the wooden yoke back onto their shoulders with that same graceful ease that has become so familiar and comforting to you, the two buckets, finding their natural balance on either side of their body. The perfect bucket continues to hold its clear, sparkling water, a mirror of liquid light that reflects the filtered sunshine of the forest clearing. The cracked bucket continues its steady offering of drops to the earth below, each drop a small blessing that nourishes the moss and tiny wildflowers that have begun to spring up along the path wherever the water-bearer has walked. The water-bearer turns to you with that gentle, knowing smile that has guided you through the valley of grief and the forest of fear, their eyes bright with the light of deep compassion and understanding. With a simple nod, they invite you to continue the journey, and you rise from your resting place against the great tree, feeling somehow different than when you first entered the forest, not unchanged by your encounter with fear, but transformed by it, not diminished by facing your shadows, but strengthened by the courage you discovered in their very heart. The path leads you out of the forest clearing and up, always up, winding its way through trees that gradually become smaller, more sparse, more weathered by wind and weather. The air grows thinner as you climb, and you can feel the change in your lungs, the way each breath requires a little more effort, a little more intention. The temperature drops noticeably, and you can see your breath beginning to mist in the cool, crisp air that speaks of high places, of peaks and ridges where the earth reaches toward the sky. As you climb higher, the forest gives way to something altogether different. The trees become stunted and gnarled, twisted by constant wind into shapes that speak of endurance, of survival against harsh conditions, of the kind of strength that comes only from weathering countless storms. The path becomes steeper, rockier, more challenging, requiring you to watch your footing, to choose your steps carefully, to engage muscles you haven't used in the gentler landscapes below. The vegetation changes too, becoming sparse and hardy, adapted to conditions that would kill the delicate flowers of the valley or the shade-loving ferns of the forest. Here, only the strongest survive. Tough grasses that bend but do not break in the constant wind. Small, resilient shrubs with deep roots and waxy leaves that conserve every drop of moisture. Tiny wildflowers that bloom in brilliant colors, despite, or perhaps because, of the harsh conditions in which they must live. And then, quite suddenly, you emerge from the last of the stunted trees and find yourself standing at the base of a mountain unlike any you have ever seen or imagined. It rises before you like a sleeping giant, its slopes steep and forbidding, its peak lost in clouds that seem to glow with their own internal fire. The mountain is not made of ordinary rock, but of something that looks almost like volcanic glass, dark and smooth and shot through with veins of red and orange, that pulse with a light that seems to come from deep within the earth itself. The air here is different, charged with an energy that makes your skin tingle and your hair stand on end. You can feel the power of this place in your bones, in your blood, in the very cells of your body. It is the power of transformation, of change, of the kind of force that can reshape landscapes and remake souls, that can turn coal into diamonds and pressure into pearls, that can take the raw material of human experience and forge it into something stronger, purer, more beautiful than it was before. The water-bearer stops at the mountain's base and turns to you, their expression more serious now, though no less compassionate. There is a quality of respect in their gaze, the kind of reverence one shows when approaching something powerful, something that demands to be taken seriously, something that can be dangerous if not approached with the proper attitude and preparation. This, they say, their voice carrying easily in the thin, clear air, is the mountain of anger. It is a place of fire and force, of passion and power, of the kind of energy that can either destroy or create, depending on how it is channeled, how it is understood, how it is transformed. It is the landscape of our deepest frustrations, our most righteous indignations, our fury at injustice, and our rage at powerlessness. You feel a familiar heat rising in your chest, a tightness in your jaw, a clenching in your fists that you recognize all too well. You know this mountain, though you have never climbed it before. You have felt its fire burning in your veins, have tasted its smoke in your throat, have felt its lava flowing through your thoughts and words and actions, in moments when your carefully constructed composure has cracked and the raw force of your anger has erupted like a volcano that has been dormant too long. It is a place that most people fear to visit, the water-bearer continues, their gaze steady and understanding. We are taught that anger is bad, that it is destructive, that it is something to be suppressed, controlled, eliminated from our emotional repertoire. We are told that good people don't get angry, that spiritual people transcend anger, that mature people have learned to manage their anger so well that it never shows. The water-bearer's expression softens, and you see in their eyes the deep compassion of one who has climbed this mountain and learned its secrets, who has felt its fire and discovered its gifts. But anger is not the enemy we have been taught to believe it is. It is energy, pure and powerful, and potentially transformative. It is the force that says, "This is not acceptable," that refuses to tolerate injustice, that stands up for what is right, even when it is difficult or dangerous to do so. They gesture toward the glowing slopes of the mountain, where you can see a narrow path winding its way upward, disappearing into the clouds that crown the peak. The problem is not that we feel anger, but that we don't know what to do with it. We either suppress it until it turns toxic and eats us alive from the inside, or we express it in ways that hurt ourselves and others, that destroy rather than create, that tear down rather than build up. This mountain teaches us a third way, the water bearer says, their voice filled with the authority of hard-won wisdom. It teaches us to transform anger into power, rage into righteousness, fury into fuel for positive change. It shows us that the fire of anger, when properly channeled, can forge us into stronger, more compassionate, more effective agents of healing and justice in the world. With these words, the water bearer begins to climb, their steps sure and steady despite the steep slope and the loose, volcanic rock that shifts and slides beneath their feet. You follow, feeling the burn in your legs, the strain in your lungs, the challenge of ascending this mountain that seems to pulse with its own internal heat and energy. As you climb, you become aware of the anger you carry, the frustrations and resentments and righteous indignations that you have been storing in your body, in your heart, in the tight places where you hold your breath and clench your muscles and try to contain the fire that wants to burn, to rage, to transform everything in its path. You feel the anger at the injustices you have witnessed, the cruelties you have endured, the ways you have been dismissed or diminished or treated as less than you are. You feel the rage at your own powerlessness, your inability to fix what is broken, to heal what is wounded, to make the world the way you know it could be, should be, must be, if there is to be any hope for peace and justice and love to prevail. You feel the fury at the systems and structures that perpetuate suffering, that keep people small and afraid and divided, that profit from pain and gain power from keeping others powerless. You feel the fire of your own passion for change, for healing, for transformation, a fire that has been banked and controlled and carefully managed for so long that you have almost forgotten its power, its potential, its capacity to light up the world. The climb is arduous, demanding everything you have to give. Your muscles burn, your lungs strain, your heart pounds with the effort of ascending this mountain that seems to grow steeper and more challenging with every step. But there is something exhilarating about it too, something liberating about finally allowing yourself to feel the full force of your anger, to acknowledge its presence, to stop trying to be nice and polite and acceptable, and to simply be real, authentic, fully alive with the fire of your own passion and power. After what feels like hours of climbing, you reach a plateau, a flat area carved into the side of the mountain, where the path widens and the slope becomes less steep. Here, the rock formations are even more dramatic, twisted into fantastic shapes by the heat and pressure of the mountain's internal fires. Steam rises from cracks in the ground, and you can hear the distant rumble of the mountain's heart, the deep, powerful pulse of the earth's own anger and passion and transformative power. In the center of the plateau stands a forge, an ancient anvil, and bellows and fire pit that look as if they have been carved from the living rock of the mountain itself. The fire burns with a heat that you can feel from yards away, a heat that seems to penetrate not just your skin, but your very soul, calling to the fire within you, inviting it to emerge, to be seen, to be transformed from destructive force into creative power. The water-bearer gently lowers the yoke from their shoulders and places the 2 buckets beside the forge, their movements careful and reverent, as if they are approaching a sacred altar where profound transformations take place. They turn to you, their face illuminated by the glow of the forge fire, their eyes bright with the reflection of flames that seem to dance with a life of their own. "Let us rest here," they say, their voice barely audible above the roar of the fire and the rumble of the mountain's depths, "and learn to forge our anger into something beautiful, something useful, something that serves not destruction, but creation, not hatred, but love, not division, but healing." You sit on a smooth boulder near the forge, feeling its heat on your face, in your lungs, in the very marrow of your bones. The water-bearer sits beside you, and together you watch the flames dance and leap, mesmerized by their beauty, their power, their endless, hypnotic movement that speaks of forces beyond human control or understanding. After a long moment of silence, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the deep rumble of the mountain, the water-bearer reaches into the cracked bucket and pulls out what appears to be a heavy chain, its links black with tarnish and rust, its weight so great that it seems to pull their hands toward the earth. The chain radiates a heat that has nothing to do with the forge fire, a heat born of friction, of resistance, of metal grinding against metal in an endless cycle of binding and constraint. This, they say, holding the chain with obvious effort, is the chain of resentment, forged link by link from every slight, every injustice, every moment of powerlessness that I refuse to release, refuse to forgive, refuse to transform. For years, I carried this chain with me everywhere I went, adding new links whenever someone hurt me, disappointed me, failed to meet my expectations, or treat me the way I believed I deserved to be treated. You can feel the weight of your own chains, the heavy burden of all the resentments you carry, all the grudges you hold, all the ways you have been wronged that you replay in your mind like a broken record, each repetition adding another link to the chain that binds you, not to the people who hurt you, but to the pain itself, to the story of your victimhood, to the identity of the one who has been wronged and refuses to let go of the evidence. I thought this chain was my protection, the water-bearer continues, their voice strained with the effort of holding such a heavy burden. I thought that if I remembered every wrong, catalogued every injustice, held on to every hurt, I could somehow prevent them from happening again. I thought that my resentment was a form of justice, that my refusal to forgive was a way of holding people accountable for their actions. The water-bearer's expression grows sad, filled with compassion for their former self, for the person who had not yet learned the true cost of carrying such a burden. But I learned that this chain was not protecting me, it was imprisoning me. It was not serving justice, it was perpetuating injustice by keeping me trapped in the past, unable to move forward, unable to heal, unable to become the person I was meant to be. I learned that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It was eating me alive from the inside, consuming my energy, my joy, my capacity for love and connection and growth. It was turning me into the very thing I claimed to oppose, someone who caused pain, who spread negativity, who made the world a little darker and more difficult for everyone around me. With great effort, the water-bearer lifts the chain and places it in the forge fire. The flames leap higher as the metal touches them, and you can hear the hiss and crackle of rust and tarnish burning away, of impurities being consumed by the transformative power of the fire. The chain begins to glow, first red, then orange, then white hot, its individual links becoming malleable, ready to be reshaped, reformed, transformed into something entirely new. I learned that the fire of anger, when properly channeled, can burn away the chains that bind us, the water bearer says, watching as the chain continues to heat and transform in the flames. I learned that forgiveness is not about excusing the behavior of others, but about freeing ourselves from the burden of carrying their actions in our hearts. I learned that letting go is not about weakness, but about strength, the strength to choose healing over hatred, growth over grudges, love over the endless cycle of pain and retaliation. Using the tools of the forge, the water bearer begins to work the heated metal, reshaping the chain into something entirely different. Link by link, they transform the bonds of resentment into something beautiful, something useful, something that serves connection rather than separation, healing rather than harm. The chain becomes a bridge, a delicate, graceful structure that spans the gap between what was and what could be, between the pain of the past and the possibility of the future. Let your own chains of resentment be placed in this transformative fire. Know that you have the power to choose what you carry, what you hold on to, what you allow to define your experience of life. You can choose to carry the heavy burden of every wrong that has been done to you, or you can choose to transform that energy into something that serves your healing, your growth, your capacity to create positive change in the world. The water bearer places the newly forged bridge beside the forge and reaches into the cracked bucket again. This time, they pull out what appears to be a jagged shard of glass, its edges sharp and dangerous, its surface reflecting the fire in harsh, fractured patterns that hurt to look at directly. The shard pulses with its own internal heat, radiating waves of barely contained fury that make the air around it shimmer and dance. This, they say, handling the shard with extreme care, is a fragment of pure rage, the kind of anger that cuts everything it touches, that destroys indiscriminately, that burns so hot and bright that it consumes not only its target, but everything around it, including the one who carries it. For a long time, I held on to this shard, believing that my rage was justified, that my fury was righteous, that my anger gave me power and strength and the right to lash out at anyone who crossed me. You can feel the sharp edges of your own rage, the way it cuts at your peace, your relationships, your ability to see clearly and respond wisely to the challenges of life. You know the intoxicating power of righteous anger, the way it can make you feel strong and justified and morally superior, even as it destroys your capacity for compassion, for understanding, for the kind of nuanced thinking that real solutions require. I thought that my rage was a weapon I could use against my enemies, the water bearer continues, their voice filled with the wisdom of hard-learned lessons. But I discovered that it was a weapon that hurt me more than anyone else. Every time I lashed out in anger, every time I let my rage control my words and actions, I became a little less human, a little less capable of love, a little more like the very forces of destruction and cruelty that I claim to oppose. I learned that rage without wisdom is just destruction, anger without compassion is just cruelty, fury without love is just another form of the very darkness I was trying to fight against. The water bearer places the shard in the forge fire, and immediately the flames change color, becoming deeper, more intense, shot through with veins of gold and silver that speak of transformation, of purification, of the kind of alchemy that can turn base metal into precious gold. The shard begins to melt, its sharp edges softening, its harsh reflections becoming gentle, its destructive energy being transformed into something entirely different. But I also learned that the energy of rage, when properly channeled, can become the fuel for profound positive change. The water bearer says, working the molten glass with tools designed for such delicate, dangerous work. I learned that the fire of righteous anger, when tempered with wisdom and guided by love, can forge us into warriors for justice, healers of wounds, builders of bridges, creators of the kind of world we know is possible if enough people are willing to do the hard work of transformation. As you watch, the water bearer shapes the molten shard into something beautiful and useful, a lens, clear and perfect, that focuses light rather than scattering it, that brings clarity rather than confusion, that illuminates rather than blinds. It is anger transformed into insight, rage refined into wisdom, fury forged into the kind of focused energy that can cut through illusion and reveal truth, that can burn away what is false and illuminate what is real and necessary and true. Let your own sharp edges be softened in this transformative fire. Know that your anger is not your enemy, but your teacher. Your rage is not a sign of your weakness, but evidence of your passion, your caring, your refusal to accept what is unacceptable. The key is not to eliminate these powerful emotions, but to learn to channel them in ways that serve healing rather than harm, creation rather than destruction, love rather than the endless cycle of pain and retaliation that keeps the world trapped in patterns of suffering. The water bearer places the newly forged lens beside the bridge and reaches into the cracked bucket one final time. This time, they pull out what appears to be a small, flickering candle, but as you look more closely, you realize that the flame is not ordinary fire, but something else entirely, a flame that burns without consuming, that gives light without casting shadows, that radiates warmth without burning, that seems to contain within itself all the passion and power and transformative energy of the mountain, refined and purified and made safe to carry in the world. This, they say, holding the candle with reverence and care, is the flame of righteous passion, anger transformed into love, in action, fury refined into the kind of focused energy that can light up the darkness, that can warm the cold places of the world, that can guide others who are lost in their own anger and pain and confusion back to the path of healing and hope. You can feel the warmth of this flame in your own chest, the way it burns without consuming, the way it illuminates without blinding, the way it transforms the raw energy of anger into something that serves not destruction but creation, not hatred but love, not division but the kind of unity that comes when people join together in service of something greater than their individual pain and grievance. I learned that this is the true gift of the mountain of anger. The water bearer says, their voice filled with wonder and gratitude. It teaches us that our passion is not a problem to be solved, but a power to be harnessed. Our anger is not a flaw to be eliminated, but a force to be transformed. Our rage is not a weakness to be hidden, but a strength to be refined and focused and used in service of healing, of justice, of love. This flame burns in the hearts of all who refuse to accept injustice, who stand up for the vulnerable, who work tirelessly to create a world where everyone can thrive. It burns in the hearts of parents protecting their children, activists fighting for change, healers working to mend what is broken, teachers illuminating minds, artists creating beauty from pain. The water bearer places the sacred flame beside the bridge and the lens at the base of the forge, where it continues to burn with its steady, unwavering light. The three objects sit together in perfect harmony, the bridge of transformed resentment that connects what was with what could be, the lens of refined rage that brings clarity and focus to the work of change, and the flame of righteous passion that lights the way forward with love in action. Together, They tell the story of anger's transformation, the way fury can be alchemized into wisdom, rage into righteousness, the destructive fire of hatred into the creative flame of love. They show that our anger is not our enemy but our ally, not a force to be suppressed, but a power to be transformed, not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be refined and offered in service of healing the world. As you sit in the glow of the forge fire, feeling its heat on your face and in your bones, you feel something shifting in your own relationship with anger. You begin to see that the fire you have been afraid of, the passion you have been trying to control, the rage you have been ashamed of, might actually be some of your greatest gifts, raw materials for transformation, fuel for positive change, energy that can be refined and focused and used to create the kind of world you know is possible. You understand now that the goal is not to eliminate anger from your life, but to transform your relationship with it, to stop being its victim and start being its alchemist, to stop fearing its power and start learning to channel it in ways that serve love, justice, healing, and hope. Let yourself rest now in this place of profound transformation, this forge where anger is refined into wisdom, where rage is transformed into righteousness, where the fire of fury becomes the flame of love in action. Know that you have within you all the passion and power you need to make a difference in the world, to stand up for what is right, to refuse to accept what is unacceptable, to be a force for positive change in whatever corner of the world you find yourself. Rest now in the deep and healing peace of this sacred mountain, this place where the fire of transformation burns eternal, where the raw materials of human emotion are refined into the tools of healing and hope. Let the gentle wisdom of the water-bearer be a soothing balm for your angry heart, a reminder that your passion is not a curse but a blessing, your fire not a problem but a gift, your anger not a flaw but a force that can be transformed and used in service of love. Sleep now, if sleep will come, cradled in the warmth of the forge fire that burns without consuming, that transforms without destroying, that refines without diminishing. Sleep, and let your dreams be filled with visions of the world you want to help create, the changes you want to help make, the healing you want to help bring about through the transformed power of your own passionate, righteous, loving heart. Sleep, and know that when you wake, you will carry with you the gifts of this mountain, the bridge that connects what was with what could be, the lens that brings clarity to the work of change, and the flame that lights the way forward with love in action. Sleep, and let the fire of transformation burn bright in your dreams, refining you, strengthening you, preparing you for the work of healing that awaits in the world below. ***. Journey 4. The Desert of Loneliness. ***. After a long and deeply restorative rest on the sacred plateau of the Mountain of Anger, the water-bearer, gently and lovingly, returns the bridge of transformed resentment, the lens of refined rage, and the flame of righteous passion to the cracked bucket. They handle these sacred objects with the same tender reverence they have shown throughout your journey together, as if each one is a precious teacher whose lessons must be honored and preserved, carried forward into whatever challenges and transformations lie ahead on this path of healing and awakening. They lift the wooden yoke back onto their shoulders with that same graceful ease that has become so familiar and comforting to you, the two buckets finding their natural balance on either side of their body. The perfect bucket continues to hold its clear, sparkling water, while the cracked bucket continues its steady offering of drops to the earth below, each drop a small blessing that has nourished countless tiny flowers and patches of moss along the path you have traveled together. The water-bearer turns to you with that gentle, knowing smile that has guided you through the valley of grief, the forest of fear, and the mountain of anger, their eyes bright with the light of deep compassion and understanding. With a simple nod, they invite you to continue the journey, and you rise from your resting place beside the forge, feeling somehow different than when you first began to climb this mountain, not unchanged by your encounter with anger, but transformed by it, not diminished by facing your rage, but strengthened by learning to channel its power in service of love and justice and healing. The path leads you down from the mountain plateau, winding its way through landscapes that gradually change as you descend. The volcanic rock and steam vents of the mountain give way to something altogether different, something that makes your skin feel dry and your throat feel parched, even before you can see what lies ahead. The air grows warmer, then hot, then scorching, carrying with it the scent of sun-baked earth and endless, empty spaces. As you walk, the vegetation becomes increasingly sparse. The hardy mountain plants that clung to life in the harsh conditions of the peak give way to even more resilient species. Cacti with thick, waxy skin and sharp spines, scrub brush with deep roots and tiny leaves, plants that have learned to survive on almost nothing, to find water where none seems to exist, to bloom in conditions that would kill most living things. The path itself becomes less defined, sometimes disappearing altogether beneath shifting sand that seems to move and change with every breath of wind. The stones that have guided your way through the other landscapes become fewer and farther between, until finally they disappear entirely, leaving only the endless, undulating surface of sand dunes that stretch to the horizon in every direction. And then, quite suddenly, you find yourself standing at the edge of a vast desert, a desert unlike any you have ever seen or imagined. It stretches before you like a sea of gold and amber, its surface rippling and shifting in the heat waves that rise from the sand like liquid light. The dunes roll away into the distance like frozen waves, their curves and valleys creating a landscape of breathtaking beauty and terrifying emptiness. The sky above is a vast dome of brilliant blue, so intense and pure that it seems almost artificial, like a painted ceiling in some cosmic cathedral. The sun hangs in this sky like a merciless eye, its heat so intense that you can feel it penetrating your skin, your clothes, your very bones. There is no shade here, no relief from the relentless exposure, no place to hide from the overwhelming vastness of this empty, beautiful, terrible place. The silence is profound, almost oppressive in its completeness. There are no birds here, no insects, no rustling leaves or babbling streams. There is only the whisper of wind across sand, the subtle sound of countless tiny grains shifting and settling, the vast empty silence of a place where life exists only at the very margins, where survival is a constant struggle against forces that seem designed to eliminate anything that dares to live. The water-bearer stops at the desert's edge and turns to you, their expression more solemn now, though no less compassionate. There is a quality of deep understanding in their eyes, the kind of recognition that comes from intimate acquaintance with this landscape, from having walked its empty paths and felt its crushing weight of solitude and isolation. This, they say, their voice softer now, as if they are mindful of disturbing the profound silence of this place, is the desert of loneliness. It is a place of emptiness, of isolation, of a deep and aching sense of separation from the web of life that connects all things. It is the landscape of our deepest feelings of being alone, of being unseen, of being disconnected from the love and understanding and belonging that every human heart craves. You feel a familiar ache in your own chest, a hollow, empty feeling that you recognize all too well. You know this desert, though you have never walked its sands before. You have felt its vast emptiness in your own soul, the sense of being a tiny, insignificant speck in a vast and indifferent universe. You have felt the searing heat of your own unmet longing for connection, for belonging, for love that sees you and knows you and accepts you exactly as you are. It is a place of great and profound suffering, the water-bearer continues, their voice filled with the compassion of one who has known this suffering intimately, the suffering of feeling invisible, of believing that no one truly understands you, of carrying your deepest fears and hopes and dreams in secret, because you are convinced that if you revealed them, you would be rejected, abandoned, left even more alone than you already are. The water-bearer's gaze moves across the endless expanse of sand, taking in its terrible beauty, its crushing vastness, its atmosphere of profound isolation. But it is also a place of great and profound discovery, a place where we can find a connection that is deeper than any circumstance, a belonging that is more fundamental than any relationship, a love that can never be broken, because it is not dependent on the approval or presence of others, but on the recognition of our own true nature, our own inherent worth, our own unbreakable connection to the source of all life. They gesture toward the desert, where you can see a faint path, marked not by stones, but by the occasional piece of driftwood, bleached white by sun and sand, or by small cairns of rocks that previous travelers have left to mark the way. This desert teaches us that loneliness is not the absence of connection, but the forgetting of connection. It shows us that we are never truly alone, that we are always and forever part of something vast and beautiful and loving, even when we cannot feel it, even when we cannot see it, even when every fiber of our being is convinced that we are isolated, abandoned, cut off from the source of life and love. With these words, the water-bearer steps into the desert, and immediately you feel the change. The heat is overwhelming, pressing down on you like a physical weight. The sand is soft and deep, making each step an effort, each movement a conscious choice to continue forward despite the difficulty. The silence is so complete that you can hear your own heartbeat, your own breathing, the small sounds of your body that are usually masked by the noise of the world. As you walk deeper into the desert, following the water-bearer's steady, unhurried pace, you feel the loneliness of this place seeping into your bones. It is not just the physical isolation, though, that is profound, but something deeper, something that speaks to the existential loneliness that every human being carries, the sense of being fundamentally alone in our own consciousness, trapped inside our own skin, forever separate from the inner experience of others. You feel the loneliness of your own unique and individual existence, the way your thoughts and feelings and experiences are yours alone, unable to be fully shared or completely understood by another person, no matter how much they love you or how hard they try to bridge the gap between their consciousness and yours. You feel the loneliness of your own secret sorrows, your own hidden shames, the parts of yourself that you believe no one could ever understand or accept or love. You feel the loneliness of your own mortality, the sense of being a brief and fleeting spark in the vast darkness of eternity, a temporary arrangement of atoms and energy that will one day dissolve back into the elements from which it came, leaving no trace, no lasting impact, no evidence that you were ever here at all. The journey through the desert is long and arduous. The sun beats down mercilessly, draining you of strength and will. The sand shifts beneath your feet, making progress slow and difficult. The heat creates mirages that dance on the horizon, showing you oases that disappear as you approach, cities that exist only in the shimmer of superheated air, promises of relief and connection that prove to be illusions created by your own desperate longing. You feel a powerful urge to give up, to lie down in the sand and let the desert claim you, to disappear into the vast emptiness and silence, to stop struggling against the overwhelming sense of isolation and simply surrender to it. But the water-bearer walks on, their pace steady and unhurried, their presence a quiet beacon of hope in the midst of the desolation. After what seems like an eternity of walking through the endless, shifting landscape of sand and heat and silence, you reach a place where something miraculous appears. It is a single, ancient tree, standing alone in the vast emptiness, like a testament to the possibility of life in the most unlikely places. The tree is gnarled and weathered, its bark scarred by sandstorms and scorched by countless years of relentless sun, its branches twisted into strange and beautiful shapes by the constant wind. But it is alive, gloriously and defiantly alive, its deep roots reaching down into hidden sources of water, far below the surface, its leaves providing a small circle of blessed shade in the midst of the merciless exposure. And at the base of the tree, impossible and wonderful, there is a small spring of clear, cool water, bubbling up from some underground source, creating a tiny oasis of life and hope in the heart of the vast emptiness. The water-bearer gently lowers the yoke from their shoulders and places the 2 buckets in the shade of the ancient tree, their movements slow and reverent, as if they are approaching a sacred shrine, a holy place where miracles happen and prayers are answered. They turn to you, their eyes full of understanding and compassion, and gesture for you to sit beside the spring. "Let us rest here," they say, their voice barely above a whisper, as if they are mindful of disturbing the profound peace of this place, and drink from the hidden springs that flow beneath the surface of even the most barren landscape. You sit beside the spring, feeling the cool moisture on your skin, hearing the gentle sound of water bubbling up from the depths of the earth. For the first time since entering the desert, you feel a measure of peace, a sense of relief from the crushing weight of isolation and emptiness. The water-bearer sits beside you, and together you drink from the spring, the water cool and sweet, and somehow healing, as if it contains not just the physical substance of H2O, but something more, the essence of connection, of belonging, of the love that flows beneath the surface of all existence. After a long moment of peaceful silence, the water-bearer reaches into the cracked bucket and pulls out an object that makes your heart ache with recognition. It is a small, withered seed, so dry and lifeless that it seems to crumble at the slightest touch. The seed is grey and brittle, showing no sign of the life that once pulsed within it, no hint of the potential that lies dormant in its desiccated shell. "This," they say, holding the seed with infinite tenderness, "is the seed of a heart that has been closed by loneliness, a heart that has become convinced of its own separation, its own unworthiness, its own fundamental isolation from the love and connection that gives life meaning. For a long time, I carried this seed with me, believing that it was dead, that the loneliness had killed whatever capacity for love and connection I once possessed. You know this withered seed intimately. You have felt its dry, lifeless presence in your own chest. The way loneliness can shrivel the heart, can convince you that you are fundamentally unlovable, that your isolation is evidence of some deep flaw in your character, some essential unworthiness that makes you different from others, less deserving of love and belonging and acceptance. I believed that my loneliness was proof of my defectiveness," the water-bearer continues, their voice filled with compassion for their former self. "I thought that if I were truly worthy of love, I would not be alone. I thought that my isolation was evidence that there was something wrong with me, something that others could see and instinctively reject. something that made me fundamentally different from the people who seem to move through the world with ease and confidence and connection. The water-bearer holds the seed up to the filtered light that penetrates the canopy of the ancient tree, and you can see that despite its withered appearance, there is still something alive within it, a tiny spark of potential that has survived even the harshest conditions, even the most complete, apparent death. But then I learned something that changed everything, they say, their voice taking on a quality of wonder and reverence. I learned that even the most withered seed holds the promise of life. I learned that even in the driest desert, there are hidden springs of living water. And I learned that the way to find those springs is not to search for them outside of myself, but to turn inward, to listen to the silence, to feel the deep and abiding presence of my own being, the presence that is always and forever connected to the great heart of the universe. The water-bearer dips the withered seed into the clear, cool water of the spring, and as the water touches its dry surface, something miraculous happens. The seed begins to swell, to soften, to show signs of the life that has been dormant within it all along. A tiny crack appears in its shell, and from that crack emerges the faintest hint of green, a tiny shoot so small and tender that it seems impossible it could survive. Yet there it is, reaching toward the light with an energy and determination that speaks of the indomitable will to live, to grow, to connect with the source of all life. Let your own withered heart be nourished by this profound and simple wisdom. Know that you are not alone, no matter how isolated you may feel, no matter how convinced you may be of your own separation from the web of life that connects all things. You are not separate. You are not defective. You are not fundamentally different from others in ways that make you unworthy of love and belonging. You are a part of the great and beautiful web of existence, and the source of that existence is within you, a hidden spring of living water that can never run dry, a connection that can never be broken, a love that is not dependent on the approval or presence of others, but on the simple fact of your being, your existence, your participation in the miracle of consciousness and life. The water-bearer places the sprouting seed in a small depression in the earth beside the spring, where it can continue to grow and flourish. Then they reach into the cracked bucket again and pull out what appears to be a mirror, but not an ordinary mirror. Its surface is clouded and dull, covered with a film that makes it impossible to see a clear reflection. When you look into it, you see only shadows and distortions, fragmented images that seem to shift and change, showing you not who you are, but who you fear you might be in the eyes of others. This, they say, holding the clouded mirror with gentle care, is the mirror of a mind that is lost in the illusion of separation, a mind that sees the world as a collection of separate and disconnected objects, a world of me and not me, of us and them, of insiders and outsiders, of those who belong and those who don't. For a long time, I looked into this mirror and saw a world that was fragmented and frightening, full of strangers who could never understand me, who could never accept me, who could never love me as I truly am. You know this clouded mirror all too well. You have looked into it and seen a world divided, a world where you are forever on the outside looking in, where others seem to possess some secret knowledge of how to belong, how to connect, how to move through life with the confidence that comes from knowing you are seen and understood and accepted. You have seen yourself as fundamentally different, fundamentally flawed, fundamentally alone in ways that others are not. I would stare into this mirror and see evidence of my separation everywhere, the water-bearer continues, their voice filled with compassion for the suffering that such a distorted view creates. I saw rejection in every neutral expression, abandonment in every moment of solitude, proof of my unworthiness in every social interaction that didn't go perfectly. The mirror showed me a world where I was always the outsider, always the one who didn't quite fit, always the one who was tolerated but never truly welcomed. The water-bearer breathes on the mirror's surface and begins to polish it with the sleeve of their robe, their movements slow and deliberate, as if they are performing a sacred ritual of cleansing and clarification. As they work, the film begins to dissolve, the clouds begin to part, and slowly, gradually, the true surface of the mirror is revealed. But then, I learned to polish the mirror of my perception, they say, continuing to work with patient, loving care. I learned to look beyond the surface of things, to see the light, the consciousness, the spirit that animates all of life. I learned to see myself in the eyes of others, to see others in my own heart. And as I did, the clouds in the mirror began to part, and I saw a world that was not fragmented but whole, a world that was not full of strangers, but full of my own self, in a million different and beautiful forms. As the mirror becomes clear, you see reflected in its surface, not just your own face, but something much more profound and beautiful. You see the entire oasis, the ancient tree, the spring, the water-bearer, yourself, all held together in a single, unified image that speaks of connection rather than separation, of belonging rather than isolation, of the fundamental unity that underlies all apparent diversity. Let your own clouded perception be polished by this unifying and liberating wisdom. Know that the separation you feel is not real but imagined, not fact but fear, not truth but the result of a mind that has been trained to see division, where there is actually unity, isolation, where there is actually connection, strangers, where there are actually family members in the great human family, of which you are an inseparable part. The water-bearer places the clear mirror beside the sprouting seed at the base of the tree, where it continues to reflect the beauty and unity of the oasis. Then they reach into the cracked bucket one final time and pull out what appears to be a small, intricately woven basket, its fibers dried and brittle from the desert heat, its interior empty and echoing with the hollow sound of unfulfilled longing. This, they say, holding the empty basket with infinite tenderness, is the basket of belonging. For a long time, I believed that belonging was something I had to find outside of myself, something I had to earn through performance and perfection, something I had to be worthy of through achievement and approval. I carried this empty basket everywhere I went, hoping that someone, something, would fill it for me, would give me the sense of home and acceptance and love that I craved with every fiber of my being. You know this empty basket intimately. You have carried it through your own life, hoping that the right relationship, the right job, the right group of friends, the right achievement would finally fill it, would finally give you the sense of belonging that seems to come so naturally to others. You know the pain of feeling like you're always auditioning for acceptance, always performing for approval, always trying to earn a place in a world that seems to have room for everyone except you. I searched for belonging in the approval of others, in the acceptance of groups, in the arms of lovers, in the recognition of achievements. The water-bearer continues, their voice filled with the wisdom of someone who has learned this lesson through direct experience. And I was always disappointed, always left feeling empty, because the belonging that is given can also be taken away. The acceptance that depends on performance is always conditional, always fragile, always subject to withdrawal if you fail to meet the ever-changing expectations of others. The water-bearer holds the basket in their hands, and as you watch, something miraculous begins to happen. The basket begins to fill, not with objects or achievements or the approval of others, but with light, a warm, golden, gentle light that seems to come from within the basket itself, or perhaps from within the water-bearer, or perhaps from the very air around you, the light of recognition, of remembering, of coming home to a truth that was always there, but had been forgotten. But then I learned the deepest secret of belonging, they say, their voice filled with wonder and joy. I learned that true belonging is not something that can be given or taken away by others. It is something that we are, something that is our birthright, something that is as fundamental to our nature as breathing or heartbeat. We belong to the earth, to the sky, to the sun and stars and moon. We belong to the great family of all living things. We belong to our own hearts, to our own souls, to our own deepest truth. We belong to the mystery that brought us into existence, to the love that sustains us in every moment, to the consciousness that looks out through our eyes and experiences the world through our senses. We belong to the story of the universe itself, to the great unfolding of creation that has been happening for billions of years, and of which we are not observers, but participants, not accidents, but essential expressions. The light in the basket grows brighter, warmer, more beautiful, overflowing its edges and spilling out into the oasis, transforming the entire landscape into a place of radiant welcome and acceptance. The ancient tree seems to glow with its own inner light. The spring sparkles like liquid diamonds, and even the vast desert beyond the oasis appears not as a place of desolation, but as a place of profound beauty and sacred solitude. Let your own empty basket be filled with this profound and liberating truth. Know that you belong, not because you have earned it or achieved it, or been granted it by others, but because you exist, because you are here, because you are a unique and irreplaceable expression of the same life force that animates the stars and the trees and the flowing water of the spring. You are not an accident or a mistake or an outsider looking in. You are a beloved and essential part of the great web of existence, and your place in it is secure and sacred and eternal. You belong to yourself, to your own heart, to your own truth, and that belonging can never be taken away from you, no matter what others may say or do, no matter how isolated you may feel, no matter how convinced you may become of your own separation and unworthiness. The water-bearer places the overflowing basket beside the mirror and the sprouting seed at the base of the ancient tree, where it continues to radiate its warm, welcoming light. The three objects sit together in perfect harmony, the sprouting seed of the heart that has remembered its capacity for love, the clear mirror of perception that sees unity rather than separation, and the overflowing basket of belonging that reminds us of our eternal place in the great family of existence. Together, they tell the story of loneliness transformed, of isolation revealed as illusion, of the deep and abiding connection that is always available to us when we remember who we truly are and where we truly belong. They show that our loneliness is not evidence of our separation, but a call to remember our connection, not proof of our unworthiness, but an invitation to come home to our own hearts, to our own truth, to our own unbreakable belonging in the great web of life. As you sit in the blessed shade of the ancient tree, drinking from the cool spring and basking in the warm light of belonging, you feel something profound shifting in your own relationship with loneliness. You begin to see that the emptiness you have feared is not a void to be filled by others, but a space to be inhabited by your own presence, your own love, your own recognition of your inherent worth and belonging. You understand that the goal is not to eliminate loneliness from your life, but to transform your relationship with it, to stop seeing it as evidence of your defectiveness and start seeing it as an invitation to go deeper, to connect more authentically with yourself and others, to remember the truth of your belonging that no external circumstance can ever change. Let yourself rest now in this sacred oasis, this place of profound healing and remembering in the heart of the desert of loneliness. Know that you carry this oasis within you always. that the spring of belonging flows in your own heart, that the tree of life grows in your own soul, that the light of connection shines in your own consciousness. Rest in the deep and healing peace of this place, where loneliness is transformed into solitude, where isolation becomes contemplation, where the desert of separation reveals itself to be the garden of the soul, where every grain of sand is a prayer, and every breath of wind is a blessing, and every moment of silence is an opportunity to remember who you truly are and where you truly belong. Sleep now, if sleep will come, cradled in the gentle embrace of the ancient tree that has weathered countless storms and still stands strong, still provides shade, still offers shelter to weary travelers who have lost their way in the desert of their own forgetting. Sleep, and let your dreams be filled with the warm light of belonging, the cool water of connection, and the gentle certainty that you are never truly alone, that you are always and forever held in the loving embrace of the great mystery that brought you into being and sustains you in every moment of your existence. Asterisk, asterisk. Journey 5. The Ocean of Joy. Asterisk, asterisk. After a long and deeply restorative rest in the sacred oasis at the heart of the desert of loneliness, the water-bearer gently and lovingly returns the sprouting seed of the remembered heart, the clear mirror of unified perception, and the overflowing basket of belonging to the cracked bucket. They handle these sacred objects with the same tender reverence they have shown throughout your journey together, as if each one is a precious teacher whose lessons must be honored and preserved, carried forward into whatever landscapes of the soul await you on this path of healing and transformation. They lift the wooden yoke back onto their shoulders with that same graceful ease that has become so familiar and comforting to you, the two buckets finding their natural balance on either side of their body. The perfect bucket continues to hold its clear, sparkling water, while the cracked bucket continues its steady offering of drops to the earth below, each drop a small blessing that has created a trail of green life and tiny flowers throughout all the landscapes you have traveled together. The water-bearer turns to you with that gentle, knowing smile that has guided you through grief and fear, anger and loneliness, their eyes bright with the light of deep compassion and understanding. With a simple nod, they invite you to continue the journey, and you rise from your resting place beside the spring, feeling somehow different than when you first entered the desert, not unchanged by your encounter with loneliness, but transformed by it, not diminished by facing your isolation, but strengthened by remembering your eternal belonging in the great web of existence. The path leads you out of the oasis and across the remaining expanse of desert, but now the journey feels different. The sand beneath your feet seems less burdensome, the heat less oppressive, the vastness less threatening. You carry within you the memory of the spring, the shade of the ancient tree, the light of belonging that can never be extinguished, and these gifts transform your experience of even the harshest landscape. As you walk, the desert gradually begins to change. The endless dunes give way to harder ground, then to patches of scrub grass, then to more substantial vegetation. The air grows cooler and more humid, carrying with it new scents, salt and seaweed, the fresh smell of ocean spray, the clean, wild fragrance of vast waters and endless horizons. You can hear it before you can see it, a new sound in the distance, a sound unlike anything you have encountered in the other landscapes of your journey. It is the sound of waves, of vast waters in constant motion, of the eternal rhythm of tide and current and wind across water. It is a sound that speaks to something deep and primal in your soul, something that remembers the ocean as the source of all life, the womb from which all existence emerged, the great mother whose heartbeat is the rhythm of the waves. The path crests a small hill, and suddenly the entire world opens up before you in a vista of breathtaking beauty and infinite possibility. Spread out below you is an ocean so vast and magnificent that it seems to stretch beyond the curve of the earth itself. Its surface a dazzling expanse of blue and silver and gold that shifts and changes with every breath of wind, every play of light, every movement of the living water. The ocean is not just blue, but every shade of blue imaginable, deep indigo in the depths, brilliant turquoise in the shallows, silver white where the waves catch the light, gold and rose and purple where the sun touches the water at just the right angle. It is a living canvas of color and light and movement, a masterpiece painted by forces beyond human imagination, a work of art that is never the same from one moment to the next. The sky above the ocean is equally magnificent, a vast dome of blue dotted with white clouds that seem to dance and play in the ocean breeze. Seabirds wheel and cry overhead, their voices adding to the symphony of wind and wave that fills the air with music. The horizon stretches endlessly in all directions, that magical line where water meets sky, where the finite meets the infinite, where the known world dissolves into mystery and possibility. The water-bearer stops at the crest of the hill and turns to you, their expression filled with joy and wonder, as if they are seeing this magnificent vista for the first time, as if the beauty of this place never fails to take their breath away, no matter how many times they have made this journey. This, they say, their voice filled with delight and reverence, is the ocean of joy. It is a place of beauty and wonder, of celebration and ecstasy, of the kind of happiness that bubbles up from the very depths of being like a spring of pure delight. It is the landscape of our capacity for bliss, for rapture, for the kind of joy that makes us feel fully alive, fully present, fully grateful to be part of this magnificent adventure of existence. You feel a surge of familiar energy in your own body, a lifting of your spirits, a lightness in your chest that you recognize as the beginning of joy. You know this ocean, though you have never seen it before. You have felt its waves in your own heart, the exhilarating highs of success and achievement, the ecstatic peaks of love and connection, the warm, gentle currents of contentment and peace that sometimes flow through your life like unexpected gifts. It is a place of great power and great beauty, the water-bearer continues, their gaze moving across the endless expanse of dancing water. But it is also a place that can be overwhelming, intoxicating, even dangerous if we don't understand its nature. Joy, like the ocean, is a force of nature, wild and free, and impossible to control. It comes in waves, sometimes gentle and soothing, sometimes powerful and overwhelming. It has its own rhythm, its own timing, its own mysterious ways. The water-bearer's expression becomes more thoughtful, more nuanced, as if they are sharing wisdom earned through direct experience of both the gifts and the challenges of this magnificent landscape. Many people spend their lives chasing the waves of joy, trying to capture them, to hold on to them, to make them last forever. Others fear the ocean's power and stay safely on the shore, afraid of being swept away, afraid of losing control, afraid of the vulnerability that comes with allowing ourselves to feel the full force of happiness and delight. But this ocean teaches us a different way, they say, their voice filled with the authority of hard-won understanding. It teaches us to surf the waves rather than trying to capture them, to dance with joy rather than trying to possess it, to open ourselves to its gifts while remaining grounded in the deeper truth of who we are, a truth that is not dependent on any external circumstance or temporary state of happiness. With these words, the water-bearer begins to descend toward the ocean, following a path that winds down through dunes covered with seagrass and wildflowers, past tide pools filled with colorful sea life, past weathered pieces of driftwood that have been sculpted by salt and sand into works of natural art. You follow, feeling your excitement building with each step, feeling the ocean breeze on your face, tasting the salt in the air, hearing the music of the waves growing louder and more compelling with every moment. The path leads to a beautiful, secluded beach, where white sand meets crystal clear water in a perfect curve of natural beauty. The waves here are gentle and playful, rolling onto the shore with a rhythmic, soothing sound that seems to match the beating of your heart, the rhythm of your breathing, the natural pulse of life itself. The water is so clear that you can see the sandy bottom, the colorful shells and sea glass that have been polished smooth by countless tides, the small fish that dart and play in the shallows like living jewels. The beach is dotted with treasures that the ocean has offered up, perfect shells in spirals and fans and delicate curves, pieces of sea glass in every color imaginable, smooth stones that fit perfectly in the palm of your hand, pieces of coral that look like underwater flowers frozen in time. Each treasure tells a story of the ocean's creativity, its endless capacity to transform and beautify everything it touches. The water-bearer gently lowers the yoke from their shoulders and places the 2 buckets on the soft sand near the water's edge, where the waves can just reach them with their gentle touch. They turn to you, their eyes sparkling with the reflection of sunlight on water, their face radiant with the kind of joy that comes not from any external circumstance, but from the simple pleasure of being alive, of being present, of being part of this magnificent dance of existence. "Let us rest here," they say, their voice barely audible above the gentle sound of the waves, "and learn to play with the ocean of our own joy, to dance with its rhythms, to receive its gifts with open hands and grateful hearts." You sit on the warm sand beside the water-bearer, feeling the sun on your face, the gentle breeze in your hair, the soft sand between your fingers. For the first time in your journey, you feel completely relaxed, completely at peace, completely open to whatever gifts this place might offer. The sound of the waves is hypnotic, soothing, like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. After a long moment of peaceful silence, broken only by the eternal music of wind and wave, the water-bearer reaches into the perfect bucket, the bucket of joys, and pulls out an object that takes your breath away with its beauty. It is a pearl, but not an ordinary pearl. This pearl seems to contain within itself all the colors of the ocean, all the light of the sun, all the magic of the sea. It shifts and changes as you watch it, sometimes silver, sometimes gold, sometimes deep blue like the ocean depths, sometimes clear as crystal, sometimes rainbow-hued like the spray of waves in sunlight. "This," they say, holding the pearl with reverence and wonder, "is the pearl of peak experience, those moments of perfect happiness, of ecstatic union with life, of bliss, so profound and complete that time seems to stop and the ordinary world falls away, leaving only pure joy, pure love, pure presence." For a long time, I chased these pearls, believing that they were the goal of life, the ultimate prize, the thing that would finally make me happy if I could just collect enough of them. You know this desperate chase all too well. You have sought your own pearls of happiness in achievements and relationships, in experiences and possessions, in all the external things that promise to deliver the joy and fulfillment that your heart craves. You know the anxiety of trying to make peak experiences last, the fear of their inevitable passing, the way the pursuit of happiness can become a source of suffering when you become attached to outcomes beyond your control. I would grasp these pearls tightly, the water-bearer continues, their voice filled with compassion for their former self, trying to hold on to them, to make them permanent, to build my life around them. I would hoard them like a miser hoards gold, constantly counting them, comparing them, worrying about losing them, and the more tightly I held them, the more they seemed to lose their luster, their magic, their power to bring me joy. The water-bearer holds the pearl up to the light, and you can see that it is not diminished by being held lightly, not threatened by the possibility of loss, but somehow more beautiful, more radiant, more alive when it is offered freely rather than grasped desperately. But then I learned the ocean's greatest lesson, they say, their voice filled with wonder and gratitude. I learned that joy is not a pearl to be possessed, but a wave to be ridden. I learned that the beauty of peak experiences lies not in their permanence, but in their very impermanence, not in our ability to capture them, but in our willingness to let them flow through us like water through cupped hands. I learned that when we try to hold on to joy, we kill it. When we try to make it permanent, we make it impossible. When we try to possess it, we lose it. But when we learn to receive it with gratitude and release it with grace, when we learn to surf its waves rather than trying to capture them, we discover a joy that is deeper and more constant than any peak experience, the joy of being fully present, fully alive, fully open to whatever gifts life wants to offer us. The water-bearer walks to the water's edge, and as a gentle wave rolls onto the shore, they place the pearl in the foam and let the ocean carry it away. The pearl doesn't disappear but becomes part of the wave itself, its light and beauty merging with the water, becoming one with the eternal dance of the sea. And as you watch, you see that the entire ocean seems to shimmer with pearl-like radiance, as if the released pearl has somehow blessed all the water, transformed the whole sea into a living jewel of light and beauty. Let your own desperate grasping for happiness be released into this gentle wisdom. Know that you don't have to hold on to your joy to keep it. You can trust the ocean of life to bring you wave after wave of beauty and wonder and delight, each one perfect in its own way, each one a gift to be received with gratitude and released with grace. The water-bearer returns to where you sit and reaches into the perfect bucket again. This time, they pull out what appears to be a net, but not an ordinary net. This net is woven from threads of pure light, golden and silver strands that seem to capture and hold, not fish, but moments, moments of beauty, of wonder, of simple pleasure and quiet contentment. This, they say, holding the luminous net with care and reverence, is the net of gratitude, the ability to catch and appreciate the countless small joys that surround us every moment of every day. For a long time, my net was full of holes, holes of distraction, of taking things for granted, of always looking ahead to the next thing, instead of appreciating what was right in front of me. You know this leaky net all too well. You have felt the way ingratitude can make you blind to beauty, deaf to wonder, numb to the countless small miracles that happen around you every day. You know how the mind's tendency to focus on problems and deficiencies can cause you to miss the gifts that are constantly being offered, the warmth of sunlight, the beauty of flowers, the kindness of strangers, the simple pleasure of breathing, of being alive, of being part of this magnificent adventure of existence. I would walk through gardens of beauty and see only weeds, the water-bearer continues, their voice filled with regret for all the joy that was missed, all the wonder that went unnoticed. I would receive gifts of love and kindness and focus only on what was lacking, what was imperfect, what didn't meet my expectations. My net was so full of holes that even the most precious treasures would slip through, leaving me feeling empty and ungrateful despite being surrounded by abundance. The water-bearer examines the net of light, and you can see that its weave is perfect, its threads strong and bright, its capacity to hold joy unlimited. But then I learned to mend my net with the golden thread of attention, the silver thread of appreciation, the luminous thread of wonder. I learned to practice gratitude, not as a duty or a spiritual exercise, but as a way of seeing, a way of being, a way of opening my heart to receive the countless gifts that life is constantly offering. The water bearer casts the net into the shallow water near the shore, and when they pull it in, it is filled with treasures beyond imagination, not material treasures, but treasures of experience, of beauty, of wonder. You see, captured in the net, the sparkle of sunlight on water, the sound of children's laughter, the scent of flowers, the feeling of sand between your toes, the taste of salt air, the sight of clouds dancing across the sky, the simple miracle of your own heartbeat, your own breath, your own capacity to experience joy. Let your own net be mended with these golden threads of gratitude and appreciation. Know that you are surrounded by abundance, by beauty, by countless reasons for joy and wonder and celebration. The key is not to wait for some future moment of perfect happiness, but to open your eyes to the gifts that are already here, already available, already blessing your life in ways both large and small. The water bearer places the net of captured joys on the sand beside them and reaches into the perfect bucket one final time. This time, they pull out a small, beautifully crafted boat, its hull smooth and graceful, its sail white as sea foam, its design speaking of journeys across vast waters, of adventures into unknown territories, of the courage to leave the safety of the shore and trust in the wind and waves to carry you to new destinations. This, they say, holding the boat with tender care, is the boat of generous joy, the vessel that carries our happiness out into the world, that shares our delight with others, that transforms personal pleasure into universal celebration. For a long time, I believed that joy was a limited resource, something I had to hoard and protect, something that would be diminished if I shared it with others. You know this fear of sharing joy all too well. You have felt the subtle contraction that comes from believing that happiness is scarce, that if you give away your joy, you will have less for yourself, that celebration and delight are finite resources that must be carefully rationed and protected. I would hide my happiness, the water bearer continues, their voice filled with sadness for all the joy that was kept secret, all the celebration that was suppressed. I was afraid that others would be jealous, that they would try to diminish my joy or take it away from me. I was afraid that my happiness would make others feel bad about their own lives, that my celebration would highlight their suffering, that my joy would be seen as insensitive or inappropriate. The water bearer places the small boat in the water, and immediately it begins to glow with its own inner light, a warm, welcoming radiance that seems to call to other boats, other travelers, other souls seeking joy and connection and celebration. But then I learned the ocean's most beautiful secret, they say, watching as the boat begins to sail across the gentle waves. I learned that joy, like love, is not diminished by sharing but multiplied. I learned that the more happiness we give away, the more we have. I learned that celebration is contagious, that delight is infectious, that when we share our joy freely and generously, we create waves of happiness that spread far beyond what we can see or imagine. As you watch, other boats begin to appear on the horizon, drawn by the light of the first boat, each one carrying its own cargo of joy and wonder and celebration. Soon, the ocean is filled with a fleet of beautiful vessels, all sharing their gifts with each other, all contributing to a great festival of life and love and happiness that transforms the entire seascape into a living celebration. Let your own boat of joy be launched on these generous waters. Know that your happiness is not a threat to others, but a gift, not a source of division, but a cause for unity, not something to be hidden, but something to be shared freely and openly with all who are ready to receive it. Your joy is a light in the darkness, a song in the silence, a dance that invites others to join in the great celebration of being alive. The water-bearer stands at the water's edge, watching the fleet of joyful boats sail across the sparkling ocean, their faces radiant with the kind of happiness that comes not from getting what you want, but from appreciating what you have, not from achieving some future goal, but from being fully present to the gifts of this moment. As you sit on the beautiful beach, surrounded by the treasures of the sea and the music of the waves, you feel something profound shifting in your own relationship with joy. You begin to see that happiness is not something you have to chase or capture or earn, but something that is always available when you learn to open your heart to the present moment, when you learn to appreciate the countless gifts that surround you, when you learn to share your delight freely and generously with the world. You understand that the goal is not to be happy all the time. That would be as impossible and unnatural as trying to make the ocean always calm, but to learn to surf the waves of joy when they come, to appreciate their beauty without clinging to their permanence, to trust in the ocean's endless capacity to bring new waves, new gifts, new reasons for celebration and wonder and gratitude. Let yourself rest now in this place of profound beauty and joy, this beach where the treasures of the sea wash up on the shore like gifts from the heart of existence itself. Know that you carry this ocean within you always, that the waves of joy are always available to you when you learn to open your heart, to appreciate the present moment, to share your happiness freely with all who are ready to receive it. Rest in the deep and healing peace of this joyful place, where the music of the waves is a lullaby for the soul, where the warmth of the sun is a blessing on your skin, where the beauty of the ocean is a reminder of the infinite creativity and generosity of the universe that brought you into being and sustains you in every moment. Sleep now, if sleep will come, cradled by the gentle rhythm of the waves, blessed by the salt air and the sea breeze, surrounded by the endless beauty of water and sky and light. Sleep, and let your dreams be filled with the joy of dancing waves, the wonder of pearl-bright moments, the generosity of a heart that shares its happiness freely with the world. Sleep, and know that when you wake, you will carry with you the gifts of this ocean, the wisdom to surf the waves of joy rather than trying to capture them, the net of gratitude that catches the countless small treasures of daily life, and the boat of generous celebration that shares your happiness with all who are ready to join in the great festival of being alive. ***, Journey 6, The Garden of Gratitude, ***. After a long and deeply restorative rest on the joyful shores of the ocean of joy, the water-bearer gently and lovingly returns the memory of the released pearl, the net of captured wonders, and the boat of generous celebration to the perfect bucket. They handle these sacred objects with the same tender reverence they have shown throughout your journey together, as if each one is a precious teacher whose lessons must be honored and preserved, carried forward into whatever landscapes of transformation await you on this path of awakening and healing. They lift the wooden yoke back onto their shoulders with that same graceful ease that has become so familiar and comforting to you, the two buckets finding their natural balance on either side of their body. The perfect bucket continues to hold its clear, sparkling water, while the cracked bucket continues its steady offering of drops to the earth below, each drop a small blessing that has created a trail of life and beauty throughout all the landscapes you have traveled together. The water-bearer turns to you with that gentle, knowing smile that has guided you through grief and fear, anger and loneliness, and now joy, their eyes bright with the light of deep compassion and understanding. With a simple nod, they invite you to continue the journey, and you rise from your resting place on the warm sand, feeling somehow different than when you first arrived at the ocean, not unchanged by your encounter with joy, but transformed by it, not diminished by learning to release happiness, but strengthened by discovering the deeper joy that comes from appreciation and generosity. The path leads you away from the ocean, winding inland through landscapes that gradually change as you walk. The salt air gives way to something sweeter, more fragrant, carrying the scents of growing things, of flowers and herbs and ripening fruit. The sound of the waves fades behind you, replaced by new sounds, the gentle buzzing of bees, the songs of birds, the whisper of wind through leaves, the subtle sounds of a world that is alive and thriving and abundant with life. As you walk, the terrain becomes more cultivated, more intentionally shaped by loving hands. Wild grasses give way to carefully tended paths, random wildflowers to thoughtfully planted gardens, the chaotic beauty of nature to the harmonious beauty of nature, guided by wisdom and care. You pass through orchards heavy with fruit, fields of grain that wave like golden seas in the gentle breeze, vegetable gardens bursting with the abundance of the earth. The path leads you to a beautiful stone wall, ancient and weathered but still strong, its surface covered with climbing roses and flowering vines that fill the air with their sweet perfume. In the wall, there is a gate not locked or forbidding, but simply closed, waiting for someone to open it and step through into whatever lies beyond. The gate is made of weathered wood, its surface smooth and warm to the touch, carved with symbols of growth and abundance, spiraling vines, blooming flowers, fruit-laden branches, all speaking of life's endless creativity and generosity. There is no lock on the gate, no barrier to entry, except the simple act of choosing to open it and step through. The water-bearer pauses before the gate and turns to you, their expression filled with anticipation and joy, as if they are about to share with you one of their most treasured secrets, one of their most beloved places. Beyond this gate, they say, their voice soft with reverence and wonder, lies the garden of gratitude. It is a place of beauty and abundance, of harvest and celebration, of the deep satisfaction that comes from recognizing and appreciating the countless gifts that surround us every moment of every day. It is the landscape of a heart that has learned to see with the eyes of appreciation, to receive with the hands of gratitude, to give with the spirit of generosity. You feel a sense of anticipation building in your own chest, a longing to see this garden, to experience this place of abundance and appreciation. You have glimpsed such places in your own life, moments when you have been able to step back from your worries and complaints and simply appreciate the beauty and goodness that surrounds you, moments when you have felt truly grateful for the gift of being alive, of being part of this magnificent adventure of existence. It is a place that is always available to us. The water-bearer continues, their hand resting gently on the gate's wooden surface, but that we often forget to visit. We become so focused on what we lack, what we need, what we want to change or improve or acquire, that we forget to appreciate what we already have, what is already beautiful, what is already perfect just as it is. The water-bearer's expression becomes more thoughtful, more nuanced, as if they are sharing wisdom earned through years of learning to cultivate gratitude in both easy and difficult circumstances. This garden teaches us that gratitude is not just a feeling that comes and goes depending on our circumstances, but a practice that we can cultivate, a way of seeing that we can develop, a choice that we can make, regardless of what is happening in our external world. It shows us that abundance is not about having more things, but about appreciating what we have. It reveals that happiness is not about getting what we want, but about wanting what we have. It demonstrates that peace is not about changing our circumstances, but about changing our relationship to our circumstances. With these words, the water-bearer opens the gate, and immediately you are enveloped in the most beautiful fragrance you have ever experienced. Not just the scent of flowers, though there are flowers everywhere, but something deeper, richer, more complex. It is the fragrance of life itself, of growth and abundance, of earth and rain and sunshine, all working together to create beauty and nourishment and joy. You step through the gate and find yourself in a place of such breathtaking beauty that for a moment you can only stand and stare in wonder. The garden stretches out before you in all directions, a masterpiece of design and cultivation that speaks of years, perhaps decades, of patient, loving care. Every element has been thoughtfully placed, every plant carefully chosen, every path deliberately designed to create not just beauty, but harmony, not just abundance, but balance. There are flower beds bursting with color roses in every shade imaginable, their petals soft as silk and fragrant as perfume, sunflowers that turn their faces toward the light, like living prayers of gratitude, lavender that fills the air with its calming scent, jasmine that climbs trellises and arbors, creating living walls of green and white and gold. There are vegetable gardens that speak of the earth's incredible generosity, tomatoes heavy on the vine, their red globes glowing like jewels in the sunlight, beans climbing tall poles in spiraling dances of green, lettuce and herbs and root vegetables, all thriving in the rich, dark soil that has been lovingly tended and nourished. There are fruit trees heavy with their sweet burden, apple trees with branches that bend under the weight of their red and gold offerings, pear trees with fruit so perfect they look like they were carved from jade and ivory, citrus trees with leaves that shine like polished leather, and fruit that glows like captured sunshine. And everywhere, there is water not rushing or dramatic, but gentle and life-giving. A crystal-clear stream winds its way through the garden, its banks lined with water-loving plants and flowers. Small fountains create music with their gentle splashing. Irrigation channels carry water to every corner of the garden, ensuring that nothing goes thirsty, nothing is neglected, everything receives what it needs to thrive. The paths through the garden are made of smooth stones and soft earth, designed for walking slowly, for pausing to appreciate, for taking time to really see and smell and touch and taste the abundance that surrounds you. There are benches placed at perfect intervals, inviting you to sit and rest and simply be present to the beauty and peace of this place. The water-bearer walks slowly through the garden, their steps unhurried and mindful, their eyes taking in every detail with the appreciation of someone who never takes beauty for granted, who sees each flower, each leaf, each fruit as a miracle worthy of wonder and gratitude. They stop beside a particularly beautiful section of the garden where vegetables and flowers grow together in perfect harmony, tomatoes climbing beside morning glories, beans intertwined with sweet peas, herbs scattered among the flowers like living confetti. Here, they gently lower the yoke from their shoulders and place the two buckets on a soft patch of moss-covered ground. "Let us rest here," they say, their voice barely above a whisper, as if they are mindful of disturbing the profound peace of this place, and learn to tend the garden of our own hearts with the same love and attention that has created this paradise. You sit on a nearby bench, feeling the warm sun on your face, breathing in the sweet, complex fragrance of the garden, listening to the gentle sounds of bees and birds, and flowing water. For the first time in your journey, you feel completely at peace, completely satisfied, completely grateful, just to be exactly where you are, exactly as you are, in this moment that is perfect in its simplicity and beauty. After a long moment of peaceful silence, the water-bearer reaches into the perfect bucket and pulls out what appears to be a single, perfect apple. But as you look more closely, you realize that this is not just any apple. It is the essence of appleness, the perfect expression of everything an apple can be. Its skin is smooth and unblemished, its color a deep, rich red that seems to glow from within. Its shape so perfect, it looks like it was designed by a master artist rather than grown on a tree. This, they say, holding the apple with reverence and care, is the fruit of simple abundance, the recognition that we already have everything we need for happiness, for peace, for fulfillment. For so long, I believed that abundance meant having more money, more possessions, more achievements, more recognition, more of everything that I thought would finally make me happy and satisfied. You know this hunger for more all too well. You have felt the restless dissatisfaction that comes from always looking ahead to the next thing, the next goal, the next acquisition that will finally bring you the peace and happiness you seek. You know the exhausting treadmill of desire, the way each achievement or acquisition brings only temporary satisfaction before the hunger for more returns, stronger than ever. I was always striving, always wanting, always feeling like something was missing, the water bearer continues, their voice filled with compassion for their former self. I would look at this apple and see only what it lacked. It wasn't big enough, sweet enough, perfect enough. I would eat it while thinking about the next apple, the better apple, the apple that would finally satisfy my hunger once and for all. The water bearer holds the apple up to the light, and you can see that it is not lacking anything, not missing any quality that would make it more perfect than it already is. It is complete in itself, whole in itself, perfect in its simple appleness. But then I learned the garden's first lesson, they say, their voice filled with wonder and gratitude. I learned that true abundance is not about having more, but about appreciating what we have. I learned that satisfaction comes not from getting what we want, but from wanting what we have. I learned that this single, perfect apple contains within itself all the sweetness, all the nourishment, all the joy that I had been seeking in 1,000 other places. The water bearer takes a bite of the apple, and their face lights up with pure pleasure, pure appreciation, pure gratitude for this simple gift of the earth. They offer the apple to you, and when you taste it, you understand what they mean. It is not just an apple, it is sweetness itself, nourishment itself, the very essence of the earth's generosity made manifest in this simple, perfect form. Let your own heart be nourished by this simple wisdom. Know that you already have so much to be grateful for, so much abundance in your life that you may have been taking for granted. You have the gift of your senses, your ability to taste and smell and see and hear and touch the beauty of the world. You have the gift of your breath, your heartbeat, your consciousness, your capacity to experience wonder and joy and love. You have the gift of this moment, this perfect, unrepeatable moment that will never come again, this moment that contains within itself all the beauty and possibility and potential that you need to be happy, to be at peace, to be grateful for the incredible privilege of being alive. The water bearer places the partially eaten apple on the ground beside the bench, where it will nourish the earth and perhaps grow into a tree that will feed future travelers. Then they reach into the perfect bucket again and pull out what appears to be a simple watering can, made of copper that has been polished to a warm, golden glow. This, they say, holding the watering can with the same reverence they have shown all the sacred objects of your journey, is the vessel of appreciation, the tool we use to water the flowers of gratitude in the garden of our hearts. For so long, I was a harsh gardener of my own soul, always focused on the weeds of complaint and criticism, always watering the plants of dissatisfaction and discontent with my attention, and energy. You know this harsh inner gardener all too well. You have felt the way constant criticism and complaint can poison the soil of your own heart, can make it difficult for anything beautiful or joyful to grow. You know how the mind's tendency to focus on problems and deficiencies can create a barren landscape where nothing thrives, where even the most beautiful gifts are seen as inadequate or temporary or somehow flawed. I would walk through gardens of beauty and see only the weeds, the water-bearer continues, their voice filled with sadness for all the beauty that was missed, all the joy that went unnoticed. I would receive gifts of love and kindness and focus only on what was imperfect, what was lacking, what didn't meet my expectations. I was watering the weeds of ingratitude with the precious water of my attention and wondering why my inner garden was so barren, so joyless, so unable to sustain the flowers of happiness and peace. The water-bearer walks to the stream that flows through the garden and fills the watering can with clear, fresh water. But then I learned to change my focus, to redirect my attention, to choose consciously what I would water in the garden of my heart. I learned that appreciation is like water. Whatever we give it to will grow and flourish and multiply. They begin to water the plants around you, their movements gentle and deliberate, their attention focused completely on the act of nourishing, of caring, of giving life-sustaining water to the growing things. As the water touches the plants, they seem to lift their heads, to brighten their colors, to release their fragrances in a wave of gratitude that fills the air with sweetness. I learned that gratitude is not just a feeling that comes and goes, they say, continuing to water the garden with loving care, but a practice that we can cultivate, a muscle that we can strengthen, a skill that we can develop. I learned that the more we practice appreciation, the more we find to appreciate, the more we water the flowers of gratitude, the more beautiful our inner garden becomes. Let your own inner garden be tended with this gentle wisdom. Know that you have the power to choose what you focus on, what you give your attention to, what you water with the precious resource of your awareness. You can choose to focus on what is wrong, what is missing, what is imperfect, and watch those weeds grow and multiply and choke out everything beautiful in your life. Or you can choose to focus on what is right, what is present, what is beautiful, and watch those flowers bloom and spread and transform your entire inner landscape into a garden of joy and peace and gratitude. The water-bearer places the watering can beside the apple core and reaches into the perfect bucket one final time. This time, they pull out a handful of seeds, not ordinary seeds, but seeds that seem to glow with their own inner light, seeds that pulse with life and potential, and the promise of future abundance. These, they say, holding the glowing seeds in their cupped palms, are the seeds of generosity, the understanding that the more we give, the more we have, that the more we share our abundance, the more abundant we become. For so long, I believed that gratitude was a private affair, something to be kept to myself, something that didn't require any action or expression or sharing with others. You know this tendency to keep gratitude private, to appreciate silently, without expressing that appreciation, to receive gifts without acknowledging them, to benefit from others' kindness, without letting them know how much it means to you. You know how this private gratitude, while better than no gratitude at all, can feel incomplete, unexpressed, like a song that is never sung, or a dance that is never danced. But then I learned that gratitude, like love, is not diminished by expression, but multiplied by it, the water-bearer says, their voice filled with the joy of discovery. I learned that when we express our appreciation, when we share our gratitude, when we let others know how their gifts have blessed us, we plant seeds of joy in their hearts that can grow and bloom and produce fruit for years to come. The water-bearer begins to scatter the glowing seeds throughout the garden, and wherever they fall, new plants immediately begin to sprout, not just flowers and vegetables, but plants you have never seen before, plants that seem to embody pure joy, pure love, pure gratitude, made manifest in living form. I learned that gratitude is not just about receiving, but about giving back, they continue, watching as the seeds take root and begin to grow with miraculous speed. It's about recognizing that we are part of a great web of giving and receiving, of blessing and being blessed, of nourishing and being nourished. When we express our gratitude, when we share our appreciation, when we give back from the abundance we have received, we complete the circle, we keep the flow moving, we ensure that the garden of life continues to flourish for everyone. As you watch, the newly sprouted plants begin to bloom, their flowers more beautiful than anything you have ever seen, their fragrances more sweet than any perfume, their very presence, a blessing that makes the entire garden more beautiful, more abundant, more alive. Let your own seeds of gratitude be planted in the fertile soil of expression and generosity. Know that your appreciation is not meant to be kept secret, but to be shared, not to be hoarded, but to be given freely, not to be a private pleasure, but a public blessing that can touch and transform the lives of everyone around you. When you express your gratitude, when you let others know how their gifts have blessed you, when you give back from the abundance you have received, you plant seeds of joy that can grow and bloom and produce fruit in ways you may never see, but that will bless the world for generations to come. The water-bearer stands in the center of the garden, surrounded by the fruits of gratitude, the perfect apple of simple abundance, the watering can of focused appreciation, and the miraculous plants that have grown from the seeds of expressed gratitude. Their face is radiant with joy, their eyes bright with the satisfaction that comes not from getting what you want, but from appreciating what you have, not from achieving some future goal, but from being fully present to the gifts of this moment. As you sit in this place of incredible beauty and abundance, you feel something profound shifting in your own relationship with gratitude. You begin to see that appreciation is not just a nice feeling to have occasionally, but a way of life, a practice that can transform your entire experience of existence, a key that can unlock the door to a life of joy and peace and fulfillment, regardless of your external circumstances. You understand that the goal is not to be grateful only when things are going well, but to cultivate the ability to find something to appreciate even in difficult times, to water the flowers of gratitude even when the weeds of complaint seem to be taking over, to plant seeds of generosity even when you feel like you have nothing to give. Let yourself rest now in this place of profound beauty and peace, this garden where gratitude has been cultivated into a living paradise, where appreciation has transformed simple plants into miracles of beauty and abundance. Know that you carry this garden within you always, that the seeds of gratitude are already planted in your heart, waiting only for the water of your attention and the sunshine of your appreciation to bloom into a life of joy and wonder and deep satisfaction. Rest in the deep and healing peace of this sacred garden, where every flower is a prayer of thanksgiving, where every fruit is a gift of the earth's generosity, where every breath of fragrant air is a reminder of the countless blessings that surround you in every moment of your existence. Sleep now, if sleep will come, cradled in the gentle embrace of this place, where gratitude has been cultivated into paradise, where appreciation has transformed the ordinary into the miraculous, where the simple act of saying thank you has created a world of beauty and abundance and joy. Sleep, and let your dreams be filled with the fragrance of flowers, the sweetness of fruit, the gentle sound of water nourishing growing things. Sleep, and know that when you wake, you will carry with you the gifts of this garden, the apple of simple abundance that reminds you that you already have everything you need, the watering can of appreciation that helps you focus on what is beautiful and good, and the seeds of generosity that allow you to share your gratitude with the world and plant joy in the hearts of others. *** Journey 7. The River of Release. ***. After a long and deeply restorative rest in the abundant garden of gratitude, the water-bearer gently and lovingly returns the core of the perfect apple, the golden watering can, and the memory of the scattered seeds to the perfect bucket. They handle these sacred objects with the same tender reverence they have shown throughout your entire journey together, as if each one is a precious teacher whose lessons must be honored and preserved, carried forward into whatever final transformation awaits you on this path of healing and awakening. They lift the wooden yoke back onto their shoulders for what you somehow sense will be the last time, the two buckets finding their familiar and balanced place on either side of their body. The perfect bucket continues to hold its clear, sparkling water, while the cracked bucket continues its steady offering of drops to the earth below. Each drop a small blessing that has created a trail of life and beauty throughout all the landscapes you have traveled together, through grief and fear, anger and loneliness, joy and gratitude. The water-bearer turns to you with that gentle, knowing smile that has guided you through every challenge and transformation of this sacred journey, their eyes bright with a light that seems to come from some inexhaustible source of love and wisdom. But there is something different in their expression now, something that speaks of completion, of arrival, of a journey that is drawing to its natural and perfect conclusion. With a simple nod, they invite you to continue on this final leg of the journey, and you rise from your resting place in the garden, feeling profoundly different than when you first began this pilgrimage. You have been changed by every landscape you have visited, transformed by every lesson you have learned, healed by every sacred object you have encountered. You are no longer the same person who first met the water-bearer on that ancient stone path. You are someone who has been refined by grief, strengthened by fear, empowered by anger, connected by loneliness, uplifted by joy, and enriched by gratitude. The path leads you out of the garden through another gate, this one standing wide open, as if it has been waiting for your departure, as if it knows that your time in the garden of cultivation and appreciation has come to its natural end. Beyond the gate, the landscape changes once again, but this time the change is subtle, almost imperceptible at first. The carefully tended gardens give way to wilder spaces, but not the chaotic wilderness of untamed nature. Instead, you find yourself walking through a landscape that seems to embody perfect harmony between the cultivated and the wild, between human intention and natural flow, between effort and effortlessness. The plants here grow with a freedom that speaks of deep roots and perfect conditions, but also with a beauty that suggests some guiding intelligence, some organizing principle that creates order without imposing control. As you walk, you become aware of a new sound in the distance, not the gentle babble of the garden stream or the rhythmic crash of ocean waves, but something deeper, more powerful, more fundamental. It is the sound of a great river, a river so vast and mighty that you can feel its presence long before you can see it, a river that seems to carry within its flow the essence of all water, all movement, all life itself. The path winds through increasingly open landscape, past meadows where wildflowers dance in the breeze, past groves of trees that seem to whisper ancient secrets, past rock formations that have been sculpted by wind and water into shapes of breathtaking beauty, and always, growing stronger with each step, is the sound of the great river, calling to something deep within your soul, something that recognizes this sound as the voice of home, of completion, of the source and destination of all journeys. The air grows cooler and more humid as you approach the river, carrying with it the scent of vast waters and ancient stones, of mist and movement, and the eternal dance between earth and sky. You can feel the power of this place in your bones, in your blood, in the very cells of your body, the power of transformation, of letting go, of surrendering to forces greater than your individual will or understanding. And then, quite suddenly, you emerge from the last grove of trees and find yourself standing on the bank of the most magnificent river you have ever seen or imagined. It stretches before you like a liquid highway to eternity, its waters so wide that the far shore is barely visible in the distance, its current so powerful that you can feel its pull even from where you stand on the bank. The river is not just water, but liquid light, liquid music, liquid life itself. Its surface reflects not just the sky above, but something deeper, something that speaks of the source from which all things come and to which all things return. The water moves with a grace and power that is both gentle and irresistible, carrying within its flow everything that has ever been released into its care, leaves and flowers, hopes and dreams, sorrows and joys, all the offerings of countless souls who have stood on these banks and chosen to let go, to trust, to surrender to the great flow of existence. The banks of the river are lined with smooth stones that have been polished by countless years of water and weather into perfect ovals and circles, each one a meditation on the power of gentle persistence and of patient transformation, of the way time and flow can turn the roughest edges into smooth beauty. Among the stones, you see offerings left by previous travelers, flowers and crystals, written prayers and small sculptures, tokens of gratitude and symbols of release. The water-bearer walks to the very edge of the river, their feet at the water's margin where the great flow meets the solid earth. They stand for a long moment in quiet and reverent stillness, their gaze fixed on the powerful and ceaseless current, their whole being a prayer of acceptance and surrender, of gratitude and trust, of readiness to complete the sacred work that has brought you both to this place. The evening light is beginning to fade, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose and deep purple, and the first stars are appearing like diamonds scattered across the darkening canvas of heaven. The river reflects this celestial beauty, becoming a mirror of the cosmos, a flowing reflection of the infinite mystery that surrounds and sustains all existence. Then, with a slow, deliberate, and exquisitely graceful movement, the water-bearer lowers the wooden yoke from their shoulders and places it gently on the ground. They lift the two buckets, one perfect, one cracked, and hold them for a moment. These faithful companions that have carried the sacred objects of transformation through every landscape of the heart, through every challenge and lesson of this profound journey. They turn to you, their eyes full of a deep and serene wisdom that seems to hold the light of all the stars within them, the peace of all the waters, the love of all the hearts that have ever learned to let go and trust in the great flow of existence. We have traveled far together, you and I, they say, their voice soft and gentle, barely audible above the sound of the flowing river, yet somehow carrying clearly across the space between you. We have walked through the valley of grief, where we learned that sorrow is love's deepest expression. We have navigated the forest of fear, where we discovered that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to walk with it. We have climbed the mountain of anger, where we learned to transform rage into righteous passion for justice and healing. The water-bearer's voice grows even softer, more reverent, as if they are sharing the most sacred secrets of existence. We have crossed the desert of loneliness, where we remembered that we are never truly alone, that we belong to the great web of life itself. We have played in the ocean of joy, where we learned to surf the waves of happiness rather than trying to capture them. We have rested in the garden of gratitude, where we discovered that abundance is not about having more, but about appreciating what we have. They pause, their gaze moving from your face to the great river that flows before you, its surface catching and reflecting the last light of the setting Sunday. And now we have come to this, the final destination of all journeys, the place where all paths converge, the great river of release, where we learn the deepest lesson of all the art of letting go. You look at the great river, and you feel a mixture of awe and peace, anticipation, and a gentle sadness, as if you are approaching something both wonderful and final, something that will complete your transformation, but also mark the end of this sacred journey with your beloved guide. This river teaches us that the journey is not about accumulating. The water-bearer continues, their voice taking on the quality of ancient wisdom, of truths that have been discovered and rediscovered by countless souls throughout the ages. It is not about collecting experiences or achievements, or even wisdom like treasures to be hoarded. The journey is about learning to hold all of life with open hands, to receive its gifts with gratitude, and to release them without clinging when it is time for them to go. It is about learning to dance with the river of existence, to flow with its current rather than fighting against it, to trust in its mysterious and beautiful wisdom, even when we cannot see where it is taking us. It is about discovering that we are not separate from the river but part of it, not observers of the flow, but expressions of it, not victims of change, but partners in the great dance of transformation that is the very essence of life itself. With these words, the water-bearer lifts the cracked bucket, the bucket that has carried all the sacred objects of sorrow and challenge and transformation, and with a gesture of infinite tenderness and gratitude, they pour its contents into the great river, the crystallized tear of grief, the ashes of destruction, the golden key of the open heart, the clear mirror of self-acceptance, the transformed ember of peaceful awareness, the sprouting seed of life-embracing mortality, the bridge of transformed resentment, the lens of refined rage, the flame of righteous passion, the sprouting seed of the remembered heart, the clear mirror of unified perception, and the overflowing basket of belonging. All of these sacred teachers merge with the flowing water and are carried away, not with violence or loss, but with a gentle and inexorable grace. They are not destroyed or discarded, but transformed, returned to the great source from which they came, their lessons learned, their purpose fulfilled, their wisdom now part of the eternal flow that nourishes all life, that carries the accumulated wisdom of all souls who have ever walked the path of awakening and healing. Then, the water-bearer lifts the perfect bucket, the bucket that has carried all the sacred objects of joy and celebration and abundance, and with the same gentle and loving gesture, they pour its contents into the river as well. The released pearl of peak experience, the net of captured wonders, the boat of generous celebration, the perfect apple of simple abundance, the golden watering can of appreciation, and the glowing seeds of expressed gratitude all merge with the flowing water, their light and beauty becoming one with the great current, gifts given back to the source of all gifts, offerings returned to the heart of generosity itself. You watch with a heart full of awe and understanding as everything is released, everything is surrendered, everything is given back to the great flow of existence. The water-bearer has let go of it all, the sorrows and the joys, the pain and the beauty, the struggles and the triumphs, the entire collection of experiences and wisdom that has defined their journey and yours. And in this letting go, you see something miraculous. The water-bearer is not diminished by the release, but somehow enlarged, not emptied, but filled, not impoverished, but enriched beyond measure. They have become one with the river itself, no longer carrying the water but being the water, no longer separate from the flow but part of it, no longer burdened by the weight of accumulated experience, but free to dance with the eternal current of existence. The water-bearer turns to you one final time, their face illuminated by the soft light of the rising moon and the gentle glow that seems to emanate from the river itself. Their eyes are full of a peace that surpasses all understanding, a joy that is not dependent on any external circumstance, a love that embraces all of existence without exception or condition. The greatest teaching of this river, they say, their voice now seeming to come not just from their throat, but from the water itself, from the stones and the stars, and the very air around you, is that we are not our experiences. We are not our sorrows or our joys, our failures or our successes, our fears or our hopes. We are the awareness that experiences all of these things, the consciousness that witnesses the flow, the love that embraces whatever arises and whatever passes away. We are not the waves but the ocean itself. We are not the drops but the water. We are not the individual notes but the eternal song that plays through all of existence, using each life, each soul, each journey as an instrument in the great symphony of being. The water-bearer picks up their empty buckets and their wooden yoke, these faithful tools that have served their purpose and are now ready to serve again in whatever way the river of existence requires. They turn to you and bow deeply, a gesture of profound respect and gratitude for your companionship on this sacred journey, for your willingness to walk the path of transformation, for your courage in facing every landscape of the heart with openness and trust. You are the water-bearer now, they say, their voice filled with confidence and love. You have learned the lessons of every landscape, received the gifts of every sacred object, discovered the wisdom that can only be found by walking the path with an open heart and a willing spirit. You have the knowledge, the courage, and the grace to carry your own joys and sorrows, to find the balance between holding and releasing, to dance with the great river of existence in whatever way serves the highest good of all. And then, as the last light of the sun disappears below the horizon, and the world is bathed in the soft, silver light of the moon and stars, the water-bearer turns and walks into the river. They do not sink or struggle, but seem to merge with the water itself, becoming one with the flow, their form gradually dissolving into the current until they are no longer visible as a separate being, but have become part of the eternal dance of water and light and love that is the river's deepest nature. You stand alone on the bank of the great river, but you do not feel alone. You feel connected to everything, to the water and the stones, to the stars and the moon, to all the souls who have ever stood in this place and learned to let go, to all the hearts that have ever discovered the freedom that comes from releasing attachment and trusting in the flow of existence. You understand now that this is not an ending but a beginning, not a conclusion but a commencement, not a farewell, but a recognition of the eternal connection that binds all beings in the great web of love and consciousness that is the true nature of reality. You are the water-bearer now, carrying within you all the wisdom of the journey, all the lessons of the landscapes, all the gifts of the sacred objects. But more than that, you are the river itself, the flow itself, the love itself that moves through all things and connects all beings in the great dance of existence. Let yourself rest now in this place of ultimate peace and understanding, this sacred shore where all journeys end and all journeys begin, where the individual drop discovers its true nature as the infinite ocean, where the seeker realizes that what they have been seeking has been seeking them all along. You are empty and you are full. You are nothing and you are everything. You are the drop, and you are the ocean. You are the wave, and you are the water. You are the journey, and you are the destination. You are the question, and you are the answer. You are the love that seeks itself and finds itself in every heart, in every soul, in every moment of existence. Let yourself drift now into the deepest peace, the most profound rest, the most complete surrender to the great flow of existence that carries all things in its loving embrace. You are safe, you are held, you are loved beyond measure and beyond understanding. Rest now in the knowledge that you are whole, that you are complete, that you are exactly where you need to be, and exactly who you need to be in this moment and in every moment. Rest in the certainty that you are not separate from the source of all love, all wisdom, all peace, but are an expression of it, a manifestation of it, a beloved child of the infinite mystery that brought you into being and sustains you in every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of your precious existence. Sleep now, deeply and peacefully, cradled in the gentle current of the great river that flows through all things and connects all beings in the eternal dance of love. Sleep, and know that when you wake, you will carry with you the gifts of this entire journey, the wisdom of grief transformed into love, the courage of fear transformed into strength, the power of anger transformed into justice, the connection of loneliness transformed into belonging, the freedom of joy released and shared, the abundance of gratitude cultivated and expressed, and the ultimate peace of everything released into the loving flow of existence. Sleep, and let your dreams be filled with the gentle sound of flowing water, the soft light of moon and stars, and the infinite love that is your true nature, your deepest identity, your eternal home. Thank you for walking this gentle path with us tonight. If this journey has brought you a measure of peace, if it has offered you a moment of healing, if it has reminded you of your own capacity for transformation and growth, we would be so grateful if you would subscribe to our channel and leave a comment sharing your experience with our quiet community. Your presence here is a gift. Your willingness to embark on this inner journey is an act of courage, and your commitment to your own healing and growth is a blessing to the entire world. Every soul that chooses the path of awakening, every heart that opens to love, every mind that embraces wisdom, makes the world a little brighter, a little more peaceful, a little more filled with the light of consciousness and compassion. May you carry the gifts of this journey with you always. May you remember that you are the water bearer, capable of transforming any experience into wisdom, any challenge into strength, any sorrow into love. May you trust in the great river of existence that flows through all things, knowing that you are not separate from it but part of it, not carried by it but expressing it, not at its mercy but dancing with it in the eternal celebration of life. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free from suffering. May you know your true nature as love itself, as consciousness itself, as the very heart of existence expressing itself through the beautiful, unique, irreplaceable form that is you. Good night, dear traveler. Rest well in the loving embrace of the great mystery that is your source, your sustenance, and your eternal home.